Does your husband know he's not the father? 7 words. That's all it took to destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. I was standing in a hospital hallway, the same hospital where I've worked as a pediatric nurse for 12 years, and Dr. Okonkwo had just pulled me into her office with that look on her face. You know the look. The one doctors give you right before they ruin your life. I've given that look to parents myself. I never thought I'd be on the receiving end. She closed the door. She sat me down. She opened a file with my daughter's name on it. Harmony, my baby, my 7-year-old angel who had just come in for routine blood work because she'd been having nosebleeds. I wasn't worried. Kids get nosebleeds. It's nothing. Run some tests, rule out the serious stuff, go home, make dinner. That was supposed to be my Tuesday. But then Dr. Okonkwo looked at me with those careful, compassionate eyes, and she said the words that split my life into before and after. Denise, I ran Harmony's genetic panel 3 times because I wanted to be wrong, but the blood types don't lie. Marcus cannot biologically be Harmony's father. It's genetically impossible. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in that sterile little office, because what she was suggesting was ridiculous, impossible, insane. I have never cheated on my husband, not once, not ever. In 10 years of marriage, I have never so much as looked at another man with anything other than polite disinterest. I am not that woman. I have never been that woman. So I told her she was wrong. Told her the lab made a mistake. Told her to run the tests again. She shook her head slowly, and I saw pity in her eyes. Real, genuine pity. I ran them 3 times, Denise. Marcus has type O blood. You have type A. Those combinations can only produce children with type O or type A blood. Harmony is type AB. One of her biological parents has to have type B or AB blood. Neither you nor Marcus do. The floor dropped out from under me. If I didn't cheat and Marcus isn't the father, then what the hell happened to me? And that's when it hit me. Like a freight train. Like a fist to the chest. The IVF, 7 years ago. The fertility clinic that my mother-in-law handpicked. The doctor she insisted we use. The procedure she paid $150,000 for. Eleanor Morrison, my husband's mother. The woman who has controlled every aspect of my marriage from day one. The woman who has never once let me forget that I wasn't good enough for her precious son. What did she do? What did she do to me? If this story resonates with you, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because I want to know how far this truth is going to travel. And if you've ever had someone in your life who made you feel like you weren't good enough, like you didn't belong, like they were always hiding something from you, then you need to hear what I discovered. Because what Eleanor Morrison did to me, it wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime. And by the time I was done, she was going to pay for every single lie. Let me take you back to the beginning. To the night I made the biggest mistake of my life. The night I fell in love with a Morrison. 10 years ago, I was 25 years old, fresh out of nursing school, working double shifts at Baltimore County Hospital and picking up catering gigs on the side just to pay off my student loans. I didn't come from money. My mama raised me and my brother by herself after my daddy left when I was 6. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. I learned early that if I wanted something in this life, I was going to have to work for it myself. Nobody was coming to save me. So there I was serving champagne and fancy little appetizers at a charity gala for the Children's Hospital. I was exhausted. I had worked a 12-hour shift that morning and gone straight to this catering job because I needed the money. My feet were killing me. My back was aching. And I was surrounded by people in designer clothes talking about their vacation homes and their investment portfolios like that was normal conversation. I didn't belong there. I knew it. They knew it. Everyone knew it. And then I saw him. Marcus Morrison was standing by the bar in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Tall, handsome, easy smile. The kind of man who looked like he'd never struggled a day in his life because he hadn't. I tried to walk past him with my tray of champagne glasses head down, invisible the way servers are supposed to be at these things. But he stopped me. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said. I should have kept walking. Should have smiled politely and moved on. But something about the way he said it, like he actually saw me, like I was a person and not just part of the decoration, made me stop. I'd rather be studying for my pharmacology final, I admitted. He raised an eyebrow. What are you studying? Nursing? Pediatric specialty. So you actually care about these kids. He gestured around the room at all the wealthy donors. Not just writing checks to feel good about yourself. I looked him dead in the eye. These kids are why I'm here. The checks just help pay for the medicine that keeps them alive. Something shifted in his face. Something that looked almost like respect. I'm Marcus, he said. Denise. He asked for my number. I told him I didn't give my number to strangers at work. He laughed and said he'd find me anyway. He did. 2 days later, he showed up at the hospital during my shift with coffee and a copy of a pharmacology textbook I'd mentioned needing but couldn't afford. I figured you could use this, he said. And the coffee. You look tired. I should have told him to leave. Should have known that men like Marcus Morrison don't pursue women like me without a reason. But I was young. I was tired. And nobody had ever looked at me the way he did. Like I was worth something. The courtship was a whirlwind. Marcus pursued me like I was the prize, not the other way around. He took me to restaurants I'd only seen in magazines. He bought me clothes I couldn't afford. He introduced me to a world I never knew existed. But more than that, he listened to me. He asked about my patients, my dreams, my family. He sat with my mama on her porch and ate her sweet potato pie and told her she made the best collard greens he'd ever tasted. My mama saw through him from the start. Baby, she said to me one night after Marcus left, that boy is sweet. But sweet don't mean safe. You watch yourself with those rich folks. They don't see the world the way we do. I told her she was being paranoid. I told her Marcus was different. I told myself a lot of lies in those days. The first time Marcus took me to meet his family, I spent 3 hours getting ready. Changed my outfit 4 times. Did my hair, redid it, did it again. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted them to see what Marcus saw in me. Looking back, I realize how naive I was. Eleanor Morrison had made up her mind about me before I ever walked through her door. The Morrison family home wasn't a house. It was an estate. 12 bedrooms, a staff of 6, gardens that stretched out like something from a movie. I remember pulling up the long driveway in Marcus's Mercedes, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. They're going to love you, Marcus said, squeezing my hand. He was wrong. Eleanor Morrison was waiting for us in the foyer. She was a beautiful woman, even at 60-something. Silver hair perfectly styled, pearls around her neck that probably cost more than my nursing degree. She looked at me the way you might look at something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of your shoe. So she said, and I will never forget the way she drew out that word. Marcus tells me you're a nurse. Pediatric nurse, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I work with sick children at the county hospital. How charitable. 1 word. That's all it took. The way she said charitable, like my career was a hobby like saving children's lives, was something I did to pass the time, until I found a real purpose, told me everything I needed to know about Eleanor Morrison. But I smiled. I was polite. I played the game. Marcus's older brother Reginald was worse. He didn't even try to hide his contempt. Marcus has always had a thing for strays, he said loud enough for the whole room to hear. Picked up this one at a charity event, didn't you? The room went silent. I waited for Marcus to say something, to defend me, to tell his brother that was out of line. He said nothing. And that silence. That should have been my warning. But I was 25 and in love and stupid enough to believe that love was enough to overcome anything. We got engaged 6 months later. Marcus proposed in Paris on a bridge over the Seine with a ring that cost more than my childhood home. I said yes before he finished asking the question. The wedding planning was a nightmare I wasn't prepared for. Eleanor insisted on paying for everything. A Morrison wedding must be perfect, she said, which really meant she was paying so she could control everything. The venue, the flowers, the food, the guest list. My opinions were politely noted and then completely ignored. I wanted to get married in my mama's church in East Baltimore. We got married at a cathedral that seated 800 people. I wanted my grandmother's recipe for the wedding cake. We had a 7-tier monstrosity flown in from some famous bakery in New York. I wanted my girls my ride or dies from nursing school as my bridesmaids. Eleanor had strong opinions about who should be standing next to me, and somehow half my bridal party ended up being Morrison cousins I'd never met. The day of my wedding, I stood in a dressing room that cost more per hour to rent than I made in a week, wearing a dress Eleanor had chosen, about to walk down an aisle lined with people I didn't know. My mama stood beside me fixing my veil. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "We can walk right out of here, go get some catfish. Start fresh somewhere. Nobody knows the Morrison name." "Mama, I love him." She looked at me for a long moment. "Baby girl, I know you do. I just hope he loves you enough to stand up for you when it matters." The ceremony was beautiful. Everyone said so. Marcus cried when he saw me walking toward him. His vows made me believe everything was going to be okay. But during the reception, I heard Eleanor whisper to Marcus's sister Sylvia when she thought I wasn't listening. "Well, at least she cleans up nicely." I pretended I didn't hear. Marcus pretended he didn't hear. We all pretended a lot in those days. That night, our wedding night, Marcus held me close and promised me that we were going to build a beautiful life together, that nothing his family said or did would ever come between us, that I was his priority now. I believed him. I believed every word. We started trying for a baby right away. I was young, healthy, a pediatric nurse who knew everything there was to know about taking care of children. This was going to be easy. We'd be pregnant within a few months. I was sure of it. The first month, negative test. Okay, that's normal. It can take a few months. The second month, negative. Still normal. Don't panic. The third month, the fourth, the fifth. Negative, negative, negative. By month 6, I started getting worried. By month 12, I was obsessing. Taking my temperature every morning, tracking my ovulation like my life depended on it. Having sex on a schedule that made it feel like a job instead of something we did because we loved each other. Marcus was patient at first, understanding, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes every time I told him the test was negative. And worse, I could see the way Eleanor looked at me. Every Sunday dinner at the Morrison estate, she would ask, "So, any news? Anything you want to share?" And when I shook my head, she would sigh, this long, disappointed sigh that made me feel like I was failing at my one job as a Morrison wife. There must be something wrong with her. I heard Eleanor tell Marcus one night when she thought I was upstairs. "Morrison men don't have fertility problems. Your father gave me 3 children without any trouble. Her. Not even my name. Just her." After 2 years of trying, we went to see a fertility specialist. The doctor ran every test imaginable, poked and prodded and examined every inch of my body. My results came back perfectly healthy. Ovaries functioning normally, fallopian tubes clear, uterus in perfect condition. No reason I couldn't conceive, so they tested Marcus. And here's the thing. Marcus never showed me his results. He said everything was fine. He said the doctor told us to just keep trying. He seemed relieved, actually, like a weight had been lifted. But something changed after those tests. Marcus became distant, guilty almost. He stopped wanting to talk about the baby. He started working late more often, coming home smelling like whiskey. And Eleanor. Eleanor became involved in a way she hadn't been before. She started showing up at our house unannounced, asking questions about my cycle, my health, what I was eating. She hired a nutritionist for me without asking, bought me vitamins and supplements, and told me exactly when to take them. "You need to take better care of yourself, Denise," she said. "A healthy body makes a healthy baby." I bit my tongue. I always bit my tongue. 4 years into our marriage, still no baby. I had started to accept that maybe it wasn't going to happen for us. Maybe we would adopt. Maybe we would be one of those couples who poured their love into nieces and nephews and community service. It hurt, but I was starting to make peace with it. Then Eleanor made an announcement at Sunday dinner that changed everything. "I found a fertility clinic," she said like she was announcing the weather. "The best in the country. Dr. Gerald Vincent at Coastal Fertility Associates. He's handled very delicate situations for prominent families. I've already scheduled a consultation. I'll pay for everything, of course. Whatever it takes to give Marcus an heir. An heir, not a grandchild, not a baby. An heir!" I looked at Marcus. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mama," he started, "this is not up for discussion. Eleanor cut him off. "I've made the appointment. You'll be there." I should have said no, should have stood up for myself, should have told Eleanor Morrison that my body was not her property and my marriage was not her business. But I wanted a baby so badly, and Eleanor had money I didn't have. And the alternative was years more of negative tests and disappointed silences and feeling like I was failing at the one thing women were supposed to be able to do naturally. So I said yes. And I walked right into Eleanor Morrison's trap. Coastal Fertility Associates was located in a sleek glass building about an hour outside the city, the kind of place where everything was white and pristine and smelled like money. Dr. Gerald Vincent met us in his office. He was smooth, polished professional, the kind of doctor who made you feel like you were his only patient, even when you knew his waiting room was full. Eleanor had arranged everything in advance. All we had to do was show up and follow the protocol. The consultation was straightforward. Dr. Vincent explained the IVF process in clinical terms. Hormone injections to stimulate egg production, egg retrieval, fertilization in the lab, embryo transfer. Then we wait and pray. He made it sound simple. It wasn't. The hormone injections were brutal. Every day for weeks, I injected myself with medications that made me an emotional wreck. I cried at commercials. I screamed at Marcus over nothing. My body bloated and ached and felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. But I did it. I did everything they told me because I wanted this baby more than I wanted anything. The egg retrieval procedure was uncomfortable but quick. They put me under light sedation and harvested 14 eggs. Dr. Vincent said that was an excellent number. Marcus provided his sample the same day. At least that's what I was told. 3 days later, Dr. Vincent called with news. They had created 8 viable embryos. We were scheduled for transfer the following week. I remember lying on that table in the procedure room. Legs in stirrups, cold room, bright lights. Marcus held my hand. Eleanor had wanted to be there too, but even Marcus drew the line at having his mother present for the embryo transfer. "This is it," Marcus whispered. "This is going to work. I can feel it." Dr. Vincent performed the transfer, explained what he was doing in that calm, soothing doctor voice, told me to stay still, to breathe, to think positive thoughts. I stared at the ceiling and prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. The 2-week wait was agony. You can't take a pregnancy test during that time because the hormones from the medications can cause false positives. So you just wait and wonder and go slowly insane. On day 14, I went back to the clinic for a blood test. 3 hours later, Dr. Vincent called. "Congratulations, Denise, you're pregnant." I screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard me. Marcus spun me around in his arms. I called my mama crying. She cried too. Eleanor came over that night with champagne for Marcus and sparkling cider for me, and a smile so wide it almost looked genuine. "I knew you could do it," she said. "I knew my investment would pay off." Investment. She called my pregnancy an investment, but I was too happy to care, too grateful to question. The pregnancy was smooth. No complications. Harmony developed exactly on schedule. Every ultrasound, every test, everything came back perfect. I quit working at 6 months and spent the last trimester preparing the nursery. Marcus painted the walls a soft lavender. Eleanor bought furniture that cost more than my car. I spent hours washing tiny clothes and folding tiny blankets and imagining what my daughter would look like. Harmony Denise Morrison was born on a Tuesday morning in April. 8 pounds 2 ounces, 21 inches long, the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. She came out screaming, red-faced and furious at being disturbed, and I fell in love instantly, completely, irrevocably. She had my eyes, my nose, my skin tone, my wild hair. Looking at her was like looking at a tiny mirror. Thank God she looked like me. Eleanor was in the delivery room, of course. She had insisted. When the nurse placed Harmony in my arms, I saw Eleanor watching with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not just happiness, something deeper, something almost like satisfaction. "She's a true Morrison," Eleanor said. "Look at her. She's going to do great things." And the way she said it, the possessiveness in her voice sent a chill down my spine. But I was exhausted from 18 hours of labor and high on new mother hormones, and I told myself I was imagining things. Harmony was here, my miracle baby, my answered prayer. Nothing could ruin this moment, or so I thought. The first 7 years of Harmony's life were the happiest I'd ever known, and the most confusing. On the surface, everything was perfect. I had my miracle baby. I had my husband. I had a beautiful home in a nice neighborhood. I went back to work part-time at the hospital, still doing what I loved, still helping sick children get better. But underneath the surface, something always felt off. Something I couldn't quite name. It started with Eleanor's obsession with Harmony. From the moment my daughter was born, Eleanor was there. Every milestone, every moment, every decision. She wasn't just an involved grandmother. She was an omnipresent force. When Harmony turned 2, Eleanor enrolled her in a prestigious preschool. Tuition was $35,000 a year. She paid for it without being asked. When Harmony turned 4, Eleanor started her in piano lessons, horseback riding, and French classes. All befitting a Morrison, she said. When Harmony turned 6, Eleanor set up a trust fund in her name. $500,000. I didn't find out about it until months later, and only because a bank statement arrived at our house by mistake. I asked Marcus about it. He shrugged. "That's just Mama being generous," he said. "She wants to make sure Harmony's future is secure." But it wasn't generosity. It was possession. I watched the way Eleanor looked at my daughter, and it wasn't grandmother love. It was ownership, pride. Like Harmony was a project that had turned out exactly as planned, and the things she said, little comments that stuck in my brain like splinters. She has the Morrison temperament. She's going to be a leader. Look at those hands. Perfect for piano, just like Marcus's father. She's going to go far in this world. She has the right breeding. Breeding, like Harmony was a thoroughbred horse instead of a human child. I tried to talk to Marcus about it. Told him his mother was too involved, too controlling, too possessive of our daughter. He didn't want to hear it. "Denise, come on. Mama loves Harmony. She's just excited to have a grandchild. You should be grateful she wants to help." Grateful. There's that word again. Marcus's brother Reggie made comments too. Different kinds of comments. "You sure she's a Morrison?" he asked at a family dinner, looking at Harmony with something like suspicion. "She doesn't look like any of us." "Children take after different sides of the family," Eleanor snapped, and her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Harmony is 100% Morrison. Don't ever suggest otherwise." Reggie shut up after that. But the way Eleanor defended that statement so quickly, so fiercely, stayed with me. What did she know that I didn't? The answer, as it turns out, was everything. There were other signs I missed, small things I dismissed or explained away. Marcus's guilt. The way he sometimes looked at Harmony with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not just love. Something else underneath. Something like sadness or regret. Eleanor's control. The way she had to be involved in every decision about Harmony's life. The way she got angry, truly angry, the one time I suggested sending Harmony to a public school instead of the Morrison-preferred private academy. The medical records. When I asked the fertility clinic for copies of our IVF records, I was told the files had been lost in a transition when the clinic moved locations. Convenient. Dr. Vincent himself. When I tried to schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss potentially having another baby, I was told he was no longer practicing at the clinic. When I tried to contact him directly, my calls went to voicemail and were never returned. But I was busy. I was tired. I was a working mother trying to balance a career and a child and a marriage and the constant weight of Morrison family expectations. I didn't have time to chase down questions that probably had perfectly reasonable answers. So, I let it go. I let it all go. Until 2 weeks ago, when a routine blood test for my daughter's nosebleeds revealed a truth that should have stayed buried forever. And suddenly, all those questions I'd pushed aside came flooding back. And they demanded answers. 2 weeks ago was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. Harmony had been having nosebleeds. Nothing dramatic, but more frequent than usual. As a nurse, I knew it was probably nothing. Kids get nosebleeds. Dry air allergies picking their nose when they think nobody's watching. But as a mother, I wanted to rule out the scary stuff: von Willebrand disease, clotting disorders, the things that keep pediatric nurses up at night. So I took her to see Dr. Okonkwo. Patricia Okonkwo had been Harmony's pediatrician since she was born. Nigerian-American Howard Medical School sharp as they come. I trusted her completely. She examined Harmony, who was more interested in the stickers she was going to get than in any medical procedure. Drew some blood. Told me it was probably nothing, but she'd run a full panel just to be thorough. Just being thorough, she said. Probably nothing. I took Harmony home. Made her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with cut-up hot dogs, the gourmet version as far as 7-year-olds are concerned. Did homework, watched a movie, put her to bed. Normal Tuesday. Normal life. The next morning, my phone rang at 7. Dr. Okonkwo's office. "Denise, I need you to come in. Can you come alone without Marcus or Harmony?" My training kicked in immediately. That tone, that request. When a doctor asks you to come alone, it's never good news. What is it? Is Harmony okay? Harmony is fine physically, but there's something I need to show you. In person. I told Marcus I had an early shift, dropped Harmony at school, drove to Dr. Okonkwo's office with my heart pounding so hard I could barely see the road. She was waiting for me when I arrived, led me past the waiting room full of sick kids and worried parents into her private office, closed the door, sat down across from me. "Denise, we've known each other for 7 years. You know I wouldn't alarm you unnecessarily. Just tell me," I said. "Whatever it is, just tell me." She opened a file. Harmony's file. The genetic tests I ran for Harmony's potential bleeding disorder required blood typing and genetic markers. I also had Marcus's blood type on file from when he donated through the hospital blood drive last year. Okay. Marcus has type O blood. You have type A blood. Do you understand what that means genetically? I was a nurse. I understood blood types. Type O could only combine with type A to produce children with type O or type A blood. Harmony is type AB, Dr. Okonkwo said quietly. I stared at her. The words weren't making sense. Weren't computing. That's impossible. I know. That's why I ran the test 3 times. I checked and double-checked. There's no error. But that would mean... It means Marcus cannot biologically be Harmony's father. It's genetically impossible. One of Harmony's biological parents must have type B or AB blood for her to be type AB. Neither you nor Marcus have those blood types. The room started spinning. I gripped the armrests of my chair. I never cheated on my husband. Never. Not once. Not even close. I know that, Denise. I've known you for years. That's why this doesn't make sense. Unless what? Unless something happened during the IVF process. And there it was. The answer to a question I didn't even know I should have been asking. The IVF, the fertility clinic Eleanor handpicked, the discreet doctor she insisted we use, the procedure she paid $150,000 for. What could have happened? I whispered. Dr. Okonkwo was careful, professional, but I could see the concern in her eyes. There have been cases, rare but documented, mix-ups at fertility clinics, wrong sperm used, sometimes accidentally, sometimes not. You're saying someone deliberately used the wrong sperm. I'm saying the genetic evidence doesn't match. The how and why are questions only you can answer. I sat there for a long time, minutes, hours, I don't know. Time had lost all meaning. My daughter, my beautiful, perfect, miracle daughter, the child I had wanted so desperately, the child I had endured months of hormone injections and painful procedures to conceive. She was still mine, my egg, my body, my blood and pain and tears. But she wasn't Marcus's, and if she wasn't Marcus's, then who was her biological father? And more importantly, who had made that decision? Who had taken that choice away from me? I thought about Eleanor, her obsession with legacy, her constant comments about Harmony being a true Morrison, her possessive behavior that never quite made sense. The pieces started clicking together. Horrible, impossible pieces. "Oh my God," I said. "Oh my God." "Denise? Are you okay, Eleanor?" My mother-in-law. She chose the clinic. She chose the doctor. She paid for everything. She controlled the entire process. Dr. Okonkwo's face went carefully neutral. The doctor face. The face we use when we're thinking something terrible but don't want to say it. That's a serious accusation. She knew. I stood up pacing. She's known since the beginning. That's why she's so obsessed with Harmony. That's why she set up that trust fund. That's why she acts like Harmony belongs to her. Denise, you need to be certain before you... I'm certain of one thing. I'm certain that someone violated my body, my marriage, and my trust. And I'm going to find out who. I walked out of that office with a storm brewing in my chest. Fear, rage, betrayal. All of it swirling together into something I'd never felt before. Someone had done this to me. Someone was going to pay. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Dr. Okonkwo's office for nearly an hour. Couldn't drive. Couldn't think. Could barely breathe. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. My marriage, built on deception. My miracle baby, the result of some kind of medical fraud. My mother-in-law, a woman I had tolerated and accommodated and bent over backwards to please for 10 years. A woman who had apparently been orchestrating the biggest betrayal of my life while smiling in my face. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. Who could I call? Who could I tell? Not Marcus. I couldn't face him. Didn't know what to say. Didn't know if he was involved or if he was a victim too. Not my mama. This would destroy her. She had warned me about the Morrisons from the beginning, and I hadn't listened. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped on a name I hadn't thought about in months. Keisha Washington, my best friend from nursing school. Ride or die since we were both broke students surviving on ramen noodles and coffee. She had moved to Atlanta a few years back, but we still talked when we could. I called her. Girl, where have you been? It's been like 3 months. You good? I'm not good, Keisha. I'm so far from good, I can't even see good from here. The words came pouring out. Everything. The blood tests. The genetic impossibility. Eleanor. The IVF. All of it. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt on my lips. Keisha was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Denise. You're telling me that old woman orchestrated some kind of fertility fraud on her own son? On you? I don't know. I think so. The evidence points that way. Then you need to find out for sure. And you need evidence, real evidence. Documentation. Something that proves what happened. How? Find that doctor. Gerald Vincent. He knows what happened in that clinic. If Eleanor paid him off, he's got receipts. Men like that always keep receipts. Insurance in case they need to cover their own ass later. She was right. Dr. Vincent was the key. He had performed the procedure. He knew exactly what sperm had been used, and if Eleanor had bribed him, there was documentation somewhere. I also need to get my IVF records, I said. The clinic told me they were lost. Lost my ass, Keisha snorted. Medical records don't just disappear. Someone doesn't want you to see them. That tells you something right there. What do I do about Marcus? Nothing yet. Don't tell him anything until you know more. If he's involved, he'll try to cover it up. If he's not, you're about to drop a bomb that will destroy him. Either way, you need facts first. She was right. About all of it. One more thing, Keisha said. You need a lawyer, a good one. What happened to you is a crime, Denise. Multiple crimes, actually. Fraud, medical malpractice, violation of informed consent. Whoever did this needs to be held accountable. I don't even know where to start. I know someone. My cousin Tammy. She's a paralegal at a family law firm. She can point you in the right direction. And Denise. Yeah, I'm catching a flight tonight. I'll be there tomorrow. You're not doing this alone. I hung up the phone, feeling the tiniest bit less alone. I had a plan, a direction, a starting point. Find Dr. Vincent, get the records, gather evidence, uncover the truth, and then make Eleanor Morrison pay for every single lie. I drove home in a daze, picked Harmony up from school, made dinner, helped with homework, went through all the motions of normal life while my mind raced with questions I couldn't answer. That night after Harmony was asleep and Marcus was working late again, I sat in my living room surrounded by the life I had built. The photos on the mantel, the furniture Eleanor had helped us buy. the artwork she had chosen, the house itself with a mortgage her money had helped us afford. Everything in my life had Eleanor Morrison's fingerprints on it. What else had she touched? What else had she controlled? What else had she manipulated without my knowledge? I looked at a photo of Harmony, my beautiful daughter, grinning at the camera with my eyes and my smile and someone else's DNA. She was still mine. Nothing could change that. I carried her for 9 months. I gave birth to her. I nursed her and rocked her and walked the floor with her when she was sick. I was her mother in every way that mattered, but someone had violated my choice, violated my consent, violated my body, and I was going to find out who. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Keisha. "Book that flight. We have work to do." Then I went upstairs and climbed into bed next to my husband, the man I had loved for 10 years, the man I had built a life with, the man who might or might not know that our daughter wasn't biologically his. I lay there in the dark, listening to him breathe, and I made a promise to myself. The truth was coming out. All of it. No matter who it destroyed, even if it destroyed everything, especially if it destroyed Eleanor Morrison. Keisha showed up at my door the next afternoon with 2 suitcases and a look on her face that said she was ready for war. "Girl, you look terrible," she said, pushing past me into the house. "When's the last time you slept? I couldn't remember." The night before had been spent staring at the ceiling while Marcus snored beside me, completely unaware that our entire marriage was built on a lie. "Where's Marcus?" Keisha asked, looking around. "Work. He won't be home until late. And Harmony School. I have until 3. Good. We have a lot to talk about." I made coffee while Keisha set up what she called her war room on my kitchen table. Laptop, legal pads, folders. She had come prepared. "First things first," she said. "Tell me everything again, from the beginning. Every detail you can remember about the IVF process." So I told her about Eleanor choosing the clinic, about Dr. Gerald Vincent and his smooth professional manner, about the hormone injections and the egg retrieval and the embryo transfer, about how Eleanor had controlled every aspect of the process. Keisha took notes, asked questions I hadn't thought to ask myself. "Did you ever see Marcus's sperm sample, like physically see it?" "No." "We went to the clinic together for the retrieval. They took him to a separate room. I assumed—" "You assumed, but you never actually verified that his sample was used." I stared at her. The thought had never occurred to me. Why would it? He was my husband. We were doing IVF together. Of course they used his sample, except maybe they didn't. "What about the embryologist?" Keisha continued. "Did you meet them? Talk to them?" "No. Everything went through Dr. Vincent. He handled the whole thing personally. Eleanor insisted on that. She said he was the best." Eleanor insisted Keisha repeated writing it down. So Eleanor specifically chose a doctor who would handle everything himself without other staff involved. "Yes. That's not normal, Denise. IVF clinics have teams. Embryologists, nurses, technicians. One doctor doing everything is a red flag." I hadn't known that. I was a pediatric nurse, not a fertility specialist. I had trusted the process because I had trusted Marcus, and I had trusted Marcus because I was naive enough to think love was enough. Keisha pulled out her phone. "My cousin Tammy is on her way. She's bringing everything she could find on Coastal Fertility Associates and Dr. Gerald Vincent." What did she find? A lot. And none of it's good. Tammy arrived an hour later. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, the kind of person who saw through bullshit for a living. She dropped a thick folder on the table. "Dr. Gerald Vincent," she said. "Licensed fertility specialist, practiced for 22 years, ran Coastal Fertility Associates from 1995 to 2020. Ran past tense. The clinic closed 3 years ago. And Dr. Vincent lost his medical license shortly after. My stomach dropped. Lost it why multiple ethics violations, unauthorized procedures. There were at least 6 lawsuits filed against him, all settled out of court with confidentiality agreements." Tammy opened the folder and spread papers across the table. I couldn't get details on the settlements they're sealed, but I found news articles from the time. Several of his patients discovered years after their IVF procedures that the sperm used wasn't their husband's. Oh my God. It gets worse. In at least 2 cases, there's evidence that specific donors were selected by third parties. People who paid Vincent to use particular genetic material instead of what the patients consented to. Third parties like a wealthy mother-in-law who wanted to control her family's genetic legacy. Exactly like that. I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. I pushed back from the table and barely made it to the sink before I started dry heaving. Keisha was beside me in an instant, rubbing my back. Breathe, Denise. Breathe. She did this. Eleanor did this to me. She paid that doctor to use someone else's sperm, someone she chose. We don't know that for certain yet, Tammy said carefully. We have circumstantial evidence. We need proof. Then let's get proof, I said, wiping my mouth. Where is Gerald Vincent now? Tammy smiled grimly. That's the one piece of good news. He's not hard to find. After he lost his license, he moved to Florida, lives in a condo in Boca Raton. I have the address. Then that's where I'm going. Keisha shook her head. We're going. You're not doing this alone. I looked at my 2 friends, these women who had dropped everything to help me uncover the worst betrayal of my life, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Dr. Okonkwo's office. Hope. Not much, but enough. What about Eleanor? I asked. Should I confront her first? No, Tammy said firmly. You never confront without evidence. Right now, she doesn't know you know anything. That's an advantage. You go to her now, she'll destroy whatever proof exists before you can find it. So we get Vincent first. Make him talk. Get documentation. Build a case. Then we take down Eleanor Morrison. Keisha grinned. I always knew that old witch was hiding something. Never did like the way she looked at you. The way she looked at Harmony, I corrected. Like she owned her. Because in her twisted mind, she does, Tammy said. If she orchestrated the genetics, if she chose the donor, then Harmony is her project, her creation, her legacy. The thought made my blood run cold. Harmony wasn't just my daughter to Eleanor. She was an investment, an heir bred to specification. And I was just the incubator. I'm going to destroy her, I said quietly. When this is over, Eleanor Morrison is going to lose everything. Keisha and Tammy exchanged a look. That's the plan, Sis Keisha said. That's exactly the plan. I told Marcus I was going to visit my mama for a few days. He barely looked up from his phone. Tell Louise I said hello, he said. That was it. No questions about why I was leaving suddenly. No concern about Harmony. No offer to come with me. 10 years of marriage and my husband couldn't be bothered to notice that his wife was falling apart. Keisha and I flew to Fort Lauderdale the next morning. Tammy stayed behind to keep digging into the financial records looking for money trails between Eleanor and the clinic. The flight was 3 hours of me staring out the window, rehearsing what I was going to say to the man who had violated my body and my trust. What if he won't talk? I asked Keisha. He'll talk. How do you know? Because men like him always talk. They're cowards. They do terrible things when they think no one's watching, and they crumble the second they're caught. Trust me. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Because if Gerald Vincent didn't give me answers, I didn't know where else to turn. We rented a car at the airport and drove to Boca Raton. The address Tammy had given us led to a beige stucco condo complex that had seen better days. Not the kind of place you'd expect a doctor to live, even a disgraced one. Looks like his money ran out, Keisha observed. Good. That means he might be desperate enough to make a deal. We found his unit on the 2nd floor. I stood in front of the door for a full minute, heart-pounding, hands shaking. You want me to knock? Keisha asked. No. I need to do this myself. I knocked. 3 sharp raps. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Go away! A voice called from inside. I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. Dr. Vincent. My name is Denise Morrison. You performed my IVF procedure 7 years ago at Coastal Fertility Associates. I need to speak with you. Silence. Then the sound of footsteps approaching the door. It opened, a crack chain still on. A bloodshot eye peered out at me. The man I saw was not the polished professional I remembered. Gerald Vincent had aged badly. Gray stubble covered his jaw. His skin had the yellow tinge of a heavy drinker. He was wearing a stained bathrobe at 2 in the afternoon. "I don't do consultations anymore," he said. "I'm retired. I'm not here for a consultation. I'm here for the truth." "I don't know what you're talking about." "My daughter is 7 years old. I just found out my husband can't be her biological father. The blood types don't match. But I never had sex with anyone else. Which means something happened in your clinic, something you know about." His face went pale, actually pale even through the yellow. "I can't help you." He started to close the door. I stuck my foot in the gap. "Dr. Vincent, I'm going to find out what happened whether you help me or not. But if you help me now, voluntarily, things will go better for you. If I have to dig it up myself, I will make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. I'll go to the medical board. I'll go to the press. I'll make your name synonymous with medical fraud." He stared at me through that crack in the door. "I have lawyer friends," I continued. "I have journalist friends. I have nothing to lose and all the time in the world. So you can talk to me now in private, or you can talk to everyone later in public. Your choice." More silence. Then he took the chain off the door. "You better come in," he said. The inside of Gerald Vincent's condo smelled like stale cigarettes and despair. Empty liquor bottles lined the counter. Dishes piled in the sink. This was a man who had given up on life. Good. That made him easier to break. He gestured vaguely toward a worn couch. I remained standing. Keisha positioned herself by the door, arms crossed, looking like the backup I needed her to be. "I don't know what you think." "You know," Vincent started. "I know my daughter's blood type makes it genetically impossible for my husband to be her father. I know you ran a clinic with multiple ethics violations. I know at least 6 women have sued you for using unauthorized genetic material, and I know my mother-in-law paid you $150,000 for a procedure that should have cost half that." I watched his face as I spoke, watched the denial crumble, watched the fear set in. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to tell me exactly what you did, every detail, and you're going to give me proof. Documentation, something I can use." "I don't have any proof." "Liar." He flinched. "Men like you always keep proof," I said. "Insurance in case someone tries to throw you under the bus. In case you need leverage. You were dealing with Eleanor Morrison, a woman who would destroy anyone to protect her family's reputation. You're not stupid enough to have done what you did without keeping something to protect yourself." His eyes darted toward the bedroom. "Just for a second." But I caught it. Keisha caught it too. She took a step toward the bedroom door. "Don't," Vincent said quickly. "Please, I'll tell you. Just sit down, please." I sat. Not because he asked, but because my legs were shaking so badly I wasn't sure they'd hold me much longer. Vincent sank into a chair across from me. He looked old, broken. Whatever he was about to tell me, it had been eating him alive for years. "Eleanor Morrison came to me before your procedure," he began. "Not through the normal intake process. Private meeting, off the books. When, about a month before you were scheduled to start IVF, she said she had a delicate situation that required discretion." What situation? Her son, Marcus. He had mumps when he was 12 years old. Bad case. Caused complications. What kind of complications? Vincent looked at me with something like pity. "Orchitis. Inflammation of the testicles. It's a known complication of mumps. In Marcus's case, it caused permanent damage. Severe oligospermia. His sperm count was almost non-existent. The chances of him fathering a child naturally were essentially zero." The room tilted. Marcus was infertile, had been since childhood, and Eleanor had known the whole time. She kept it secret. Vincent continued. From Marcus. From everyone. She was terrified of the stigma. In her world, among those old money families, a man who can't produce an heir is damaged goods. She couldn't let anyone know, but he got tested. When we were struggling to conceive, he said the results were fine. He never saw his real results. Eleanor intercepted them, paid off the technician. Marcus was told he had slightly low counts, but nothing concerning. He never knew the truth. So when we did IVF, she came to me with a proposal. She said she needed to ensure that the Morrison line continued, that the family legacy remained intact. She had already selected a donor. Selected a donor. What does that mean? She brought me a sample. Frozen sperm from a man she had personally vetted. Wealthy family, good genetics, the right background. She said it was perfect, said no one would ever know. My voice came out as a whisper. And you used it instead of Marcus's. She paid me $200,000 in cash, on top of the regular clinic fees. She said it was for my discretion, for my cooperation. $200,000 to betray me, to violate my body, to use my eggs to create a child with a stranger's DNA without my knowledge or consent. Who was the donor? I don't know his name. She never told me. She just called him appropriate, said he came from the right stock, said the child would have impeccable genetics. The right stock, like breeding cattle, like I was nothing more than a vessel for Eleanor Morrison's eugenic experiment. She wanted a grandchild, I said, slowly putting the pieces together, but not just any grandchild, one with genetics she approved of, from a family she considered worthy. The Morrison Trust, Vincent said. It's tied to biological descendants. If Marcus couldn't produce an heir, the money would eventually pass to his brother's children instead. Eleanor couldn't allow that, so she manufactured one. My daughter, my beautiful Harmony, manufactured to Eleanor's specifications, an heir bred for money. I felt something break inside me, something that had been holding together by threads since Dr. Okonkwo first said those words. The threads snapped, and what was left was pure, clean, burning rage. You have documentation. The proof you kept. Vincent stood slowly, walked toward the bedroom, came back with a worn envelope. I kept one thing, insurance like you said. She thought she destroyed all copies. She didn't know I made one. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed on Morrison Family Foundation letterhead, detailing the arrangement, the payment, the requirement that the selected genetic material be used in place of the husband's sample, the instruction to destroy all records of the substitution. At the bottom, a signature I recognized immediately. Eleanor Morrison. I photographed the letter with shaking hands. Then I photographed it again, just to be safe. This is conspiracy, I said. Medical fraud, violation of informed consent. This is criminal. I know. You could go to prison. I know that too. Why do you think I drink myself to sleep every night? He looked at me with empty eyes. I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of, Mrs. Morrison. But what I did to you, to your husband, it haunts me. Every single day. If I could take it back, I would. But you can't. No, I can't. I stood up, tucked the envelope into my bag. I'm going to destroy Eleanor Morrison, I said. I'm going to take everything she has. Her money, her reputation, her family. Everything. Good, Vincent said quietly. She deserves it. I walked toward the door, then stopped. One more question. The donor. You said Eleanor selected him. Do you have any idea where she might have found him? Any detail that might help me figure out who he is? Vincent thought for a moment. She mentioned once that he was the son of an old family friend, someone who owed her a favor, someone who would never talk. An old family friend. I knew exactly where to start looking. The flight back to Baltimore was the longest 3 hours of my life. Keisha sat beside me reading through everything Tammy had sent to her phone while I stared at that photograph of Eleanor's letter, her handwriting, her signature, proof of what she had done. But it wasn't enough. I needed to know who. Who had Eleanor chosen to father my daughter? Who was this man whose DNA was half of my child's genetic code? When we landed, Tammy was waiting for us at baggage claim. I found something she said before we even got to the car. Something big. We drove to Tammy's apartment, a small but organized space that had been transformed into an investigation headquarters. Papers covered every surface. A whiteboard on the wall showed a web of connections between names and dates and dollar amounts. I've been tracing the money, Tammy explained. Eleanor paid the clinic $150,000 through official channels. But there's another transfer. $200,000 sent to a shell company in Delaware called Coastal Medical Consulting LLC, the same week you started your IVF cycle. Vincent's bribe. Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. That shell company received money from one other source. A personal check from Eleanor Morrison for $50,000 dated 3 months before your IVF. Why would she pay the shell company before the procedure even started? I think that was the payment for the donor sample. She was buying the genetic material separately. I felt sick. Eleanor had been shopping for sperm like she was buying furniture, evaluating options, making selections, all while I was desperately hoping to have a baby with my husband. Can you trace where the sample came from? Not directly. But I found something else. Tammy pulled up a photo on her laptop. The Morrison and Whitmore families have been intertwined for decades. Old money connections, business partnerships. Charles Whitmore Sr. was Marcus's father's best friend and business partner. They built Morrison properties together. I remembered the name vaguely. Mr. Whitmore. He used to come to Morrison family events when Marcus's father was still alive. Charles Sr. died about 15 years ago, Tammy continued. But his son, Charles Whitmore III, is still very much alive. 45 years old, married, 2 teenage sons. And here's the thing. She pulled up another photo. A man in his mid-40s. Handsome, distinguished. Salt and pepper hair. Look at him carefully. I looked. At first, I didn't see it. Just another wealthy, middle-aged white man. Then I looked closer. The shape of his forehead. The angle of his jaw, the set of his eyes. Harmony had my coloring, my hair, my smile. But there were features I had never been able to place. Features that didn't come from me or Marcus. "Oh my God," I whispered. "I can't prove it yet," Tammy said. "We'd need DNA testing to be certain." But the resemblance is there, and the connection to Eleanor is there. You think Eleanor used Charles Whitmore's sperm without his knowledge? That's exactly what I think. Charles's father owed Eleanor's husband money when he died. Some bad business deal. The families settled it quietly, but Eleanor held it over them for years. She probably had access to medical samples from Charles, a routine procedure, a physical exam, something that wouldn't raise suspicions. She stole his genetic material and used it to create an heir with the right bloodline. Charles Whitmore comes from one of the oldest families in Maryland. Old money. Good stock, as Eleanor would say. In her twisted mind, she was improving the Morrison genetics. I put my head in my hands. This was worse than I thought. So much worse. Eleanor hadn't just betrayed me. She had betrayed Marcus. She had violated Charles Whitmore. She had created a child through stolen genetic material and fraud. And she had done it all while smiling in my face, telling me how grateful I should be for her generosity. "Do we tell Charles?" I asked. Eventually. He has a right to know he has a biological daughter, but not yet. Why not? Because right now our only leverage is the element of surprise. Eleanor doesn't know we know. The moment she finds out, she'll start destroying evidence, calling in favors, preparing her defense. We need to be ready before we make any moves. So what's next? Tammy looked at me with hard eyes. We need a lawyer, a real one. Someone who can help you understand your options and build a case that will stand up in court. I know someone. She's the best in the city for cases like this. Who? Her name is Monique Davis. She specializes in medical malpractice and fraud cases. She took down a hospital last year for falsifying patient records. Won a $12 million judgment. Can she help me? If anyone can take on Eleanor Morrison and win, it's Monique. I nodded slowly. My head was spinning with everything I had learned in the past 2 days. Eleanor's scheme, Marcus's infertility, Charles Whitmore, the stolen genetic material, the bribes, the cover-up. It was almost too much to process, but underneath the shock and the hurt and the betrayal, something else was growing. Something cold and determined. Revenge. Eleanor Morrison had spent 10 years making me feel small, making me feel like I didn't belong, like I should be grateful for every crumb of acceptance she threw my way. She had used my body, manipulated my husband, created my daughter to serve her own purposes, and she had done it all thinking she would never get caught. She was wrong. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's end her." I couldn't wait for lawyers. I couldn't wait for careful strategies and legal consultations. The rage burning inside me demanded release. Keisha tried to stop me. Tammy told me it was a bad idea, but I was done listening to reason. I was done being careful. I drove to the Morrison estate alone, pulled up that long driveway one more time, but this time I wasn't nervous. I wasn't trying to make a good impression. I wasn't hoping for acceptance. I was there for war. Eleanor was in her sitting room, of course. Where else would she be, surrounded by expensive furniture and family portraits doing needlepoint like some kind of period drama villain? She looked up when I walked in, and she had the nerve to smile. "Denise! What a lovely surprise. Marcus isn't here. He's at the office. I'm not here for Marcus. I'm here for you." I dropped the photograph on her antique coffee table. The picture of her letter to Dr. Vincent, her signature, her confession. Eleanor looked at it. For 1 second, maybe two, I saw something in her eyes. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Then the mask went back up. "I don't know what this is," she said calmly. Don't you dare sit there and lie to me. I found Gerald Vincent. He told me everything. How you knew Marcus was infertile since he was 12. How you paid Vincent $200,000 to use another man's sperm. How you chose the donor yourself. How you've been lying to everyone for almost 3 decades. Eleanor set down her needlepoint. Very slowly, very deliberately. "I see you've been busy," she said. "That's all you have to say. What would you like me to say? Denise, would you like me to apologize, to grovel, to beg for your forgiveness? I'd like you to explain why. Why you violated me. Why you betrayed your own son. Why you played God with my daughter's genetics." Eleanor stood up. She was a tall woman, regal in that old money way, and she used her height to try to intimidate me. It didn't work. Not anymore. "You want to know why," she said. "Fine. I'll tell you why." She walked to the window, looked out over her manicured gardens. "My husband built this family from nothing. Nothing. He worked 18-hour days. He sacrificed everything. And he left behind a legacy worth protecting. The Morrison name, the Morrison fortune, the Morrison future. And Marcus was supposed to continue that legacy. He was supposed to give me grandchildren who would carry the Morrison blood into the next generation. But when he was 12 years old, he got sick. And when he recovered, I discovered that he would never be able to father children. You kept that from him. What good would it have done to tell him, to make him feel like less of a man, to destroy his confidence before he even had a chance to become someone he had a right to know? He had a right to be happy, to be normal, to have the life he wanted. And I gave him that." She turned to face me. "When you came along, I saw an opportunity. Marcus loved you. God knows why, but he did. And you wanted a baby so badly. You were desperate for one. So I made it happen. By using another man's sperm. By ensuring that the Morrison legacy would continue with appropriate genetic material. Charles Whitmore comes from one of the finest families in this country. His bloodline is impeccable. His genetics are superior. When I looked at the options, he was the obvious choice. Did he know? Did Charles know what you did? Of course not. He would never have agreed. But I had access to samples from a physical he did years ago. His father owed my husband money when he died. I kept certain insurance. You stole from him. You violated him too. I ensured that my grandchild would have the best possible genetic foundation. Harmony is half Whitmore, half, well, whatever you are. But the important half is taken care of. Whatever I am." There it was, the contempt she had always hidden behind polite smiles. The racism she had never quite spoken out loud. The belief that I was beneath her, beneath Marcus, beneath the Morrison name. "You disgust me," I said. "I'm practical Denise. Something you've never understood. In this world, bloodlines matter. Legacy matters. I did what was necessary to protect my family. And what about me? What about my consent, my body? You got what you wanted. A baby. A beautiful daughter. A place in this family. You should be thanking me." Thanking you, I laughed. Actually laughed. Because the audacity was almost admirable. You violated my bodily autonomy. You committed medical fraud. You stole genetic material. You lied to your son for 30 years, and you want me to thank you. I want you to be realistic. Eleanor's voice hardened. Think about what you're doing. If you expose this, you destroy Marcus. He's lived his whole life not knowing the truth. Finding out now would devastate him. He deserves to know. Does he deserve to find out that the daughter he adores, the child he's raised for 7 years, isn't biologically his? That his wife was inseminated with another man's sperm, that his mother has been manipulating every aspect of his life since childhood? She stepped closer. And think about Harmony. That child has a trust fund, a future, access to the Morrison wealth and the Morrison name. If you expose this, she loses everything: the inheritance, the family, the opportunities. Is your wounded pride worth your daughter's future? Don't you dare use my daughter against me. I'm not using her against you. I'm reminding you of reality. You can destroy me, Denise. You probably have enough evidence to do real damage. But if you do, you destroy your daughter's life in the process. Is that what you want? I stared at her. This woman who had orchestrated everything, who had manipulated everyone, who was still trying to manipulate me, even now, even caught. I'm going to tell Marcus, tonight. If you do that, you'll tear your family apart. And for what? The truth. The truth is that Harmony is healthy, happy, and loved. The truth is that Marcus is a good father regardless of genetics. The truth is that you have a comfortable life and a beautiful daughter and a future. Why would you throw all that away? Because it's built on lies. Eleanor smiled, that cold, calculating smile that had always made me uncomfortable. Everything is built on lies, Denise. Every family, every marriage, every fortune. The only question is whether you're willing to live with them. She sat back down, picked up her needlepoint like we had been discussing the weather. I have lawyers. I have money. I have connections you can't imagine. If you try to take this public, I will bury you. I will take Harmony away from you. I will make sure you never see her again. Don't test me. You can't do that. Can't I? The Morrisons have been powerful in this city for 50 years. Who do you think the judges golf with? Who do you think funds the Police Benevolent Association? You're nothing. Denise, a nurse from East Baltimore who got lucky. Don't forget your place. I stood there trembling with rage and fear and something else. Something that felt like determination. You think you're untouchable, I said. You think your money and your name protect you from consequences. But I promise you, Eleanor, I'm going to prove you wrong. I walked toward the door. I'm coming for everything you have. Your money, your reputation, your precious legacy. By the time I'm done, the Morrison name won't be worth the paper it's printed on. Eleanor's voice followed me out. Be careful, Denise. You're playing a game you can't win. I didn't look back. We'll see about that. I drove away from the Morrison estate shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. The adrenaline was wearing off, and in its place came terror. What had I done? I had confronted Eleanor, shown my hand, given her time to prepare. Everything Tammy had warned me against. My phone rang. Keisha, please tell me you didn't do what I think you did. I went to see Eleanor. Denise, we talked about this. I know. I just couldn't wait anymore. I had to see her face. I had to hear her try to justify what she did. And she admitted everything. Stood there and told me she did it to protect the Morrison legacy. Said I should be grateful. Said she'd destroy me if I tried to expose her. Keisha was quiet for a moment. Where are you now? Parked on the side of the road, about 3 miles from her house. Don't go home. Marcus might be there. Come to Tammy's place. Monique Davis agreed to meet with us tonight. Tonight, she moved some things around when I told her what we were dealing with. She wants to hear everything. An hour later, I was sitting in Tammy's apartment facing a woman who looked like she had walked straight out of a legal drama. Monique Davis was in her 50s with silver locks pulled back in an elegant twist. Sharp eyes behind designer glasses and an air of absolute confidence that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely outmatched. Tammy gave me the summary Monique said, but I want to hear it from you. Everything. So I told her. Every detail from the failed fertility years to Dr. Vincent's confession to Eleanor's threats. I showed her the photograph of the letter, the financial records Tammy had uncovered, the circumstantial evidence pointing to Charles Whitmore. Monique listened without interrupting, took notes on a leather portfolio. Her face remained impassive throughout. When I finished, she set down her pen. Mrs. Morrison, Denise, what you've described is a conspiracy involving multiple felonies, medical fraud, violation of informed consent, misuse of genetic material, possibly theft depending on how Eleanor obtained Charles Whitmore's sample. This is serious. I know it's serious. Do you also know that Eleanor Morrison has an army of lawyers, that she has connections throughout the legal system in this city? That taking her on will be one of the most difficult things you've ever done, I know. Good. Because I need you to understand what you're getting into before we go any further. She leaned forward. I've spent my career taking on powerful people and institutions, hospitals that covered up malpractice, corporations that poisoned communities, men who thought their money made them immune to consequences. I've won more than I've lost, but I've never gone up against someone with Eleanor Morrison's resources and connections. Are you saying you won't help me? I'm saying I need to know that you're committed, that you understand this could take years, that it will cost money, that it will be emotionally devastating, that there's a chance we could lose. She held my gaze. Are you ready for that? I thought about Harmony, about the life Eleanor had engineered without my consent, about the lies my marriage was built on, about the way Eleanor had looked at me, had always looked at me like I was nothing. I'm ready. Monique nodded slowly. Then let's talk strategy. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, we need to secure all existing evidence. The letter from Vincent is good, but it's a photograph. We need the original. Can you get him to sign an affidavit? Keisha spoke up. He seemed cooperative. I think he'd do it if we pushed. Good. Get him on the record. Written statement signed and notarized. Video deposition if possible. Second, we need to protect your rights regarding Harmony. Right now, Marcus is legally her father. That's not going to change unless someone challenges it. We need to make sure you maintain custody no matter what happens. Can Eleanor really take my daughter from me? She can try. She has money for lawyers who will find every angle. But you're Harmony's biological mother. You've been her primary caregiver. In any custody dispute, you have significant advantages. What about Marcus? That's the complicated part. Monique sighed. Marcus is legally Harmony's father. He's been acting as her father for 7 years. If he wants to remain involved in her life, he has rights too, even though he's not her biological father. Biology isn't the only thing that matters in family law. Marcus has a relationship with this child. He's supported her, loved her. Courts consider that. But he didn't know. He was deceived too. That actually works in your favor. You're both victims of Eleanor's scheme. If Marcus sides with you against his mother, your case becomes much stronger. The question is, will he? I didn't know the answer to that. I had no idea how Marcus would react when he learned the truth. Would he support me? Would he defend his mother? Would he blame me somehow, even though none of this was my fault? I have to tell him I said, before Eleanor gets to him first. Agreed, but be strategic about it. Don't just dump everything on him at once. Frame it carefully. Remember, this man's entire world is about to be destroyed. His childhood diagnosis, his mother's lies, his daughter's paternity. That's a lot for anyone to process. And Charles Whitmore. Tammy asked. When do we bring him in? Not yet, Monique said. He's a wild card. We don't know how he'll react to finding out he has a biological daughter. He might be sympathetic to your case. He might try to claim parental rights. He might want nothing to do with any of this. We need to be prepared for all possibilities before we approach him. So what's the timeline? Monique thought for a moment. Give me a week. I need to do my own research, verify everything you've told me, assess our legal options. In the meantime, you talk to Marcus. Get Vincent's formal statement, and don't under any circumstances contact Eleanor again. What if she comes after me first? Document everything. If she threatens you, record it. If she tries to contact you through intermediaries, save the messages. If she makes any moves against you financially or legally, let me know immediately. She stood up and extended her hand. You're fighting Goliath, Denise. But David won that battle, and so can we. I shook her hand. For the first time since Dr. Okonkwo's office, I felt something like hope. I had evidence. I had a lawyer. I had a plan. Now I just had to tell my husband that his entire life was a lie and pray he didn't hate me for being the one to expose it. I waited until Harmony was asleep. She had been so happy that day. Drew me a picture at school, a crayon family portrait with me and Marcus and her and our dog we didn't have, but she kept asking for. She talked nonstop through dinner about her best friend and her piano recital and the book they were reading in class. My beautiful, innocent daughter, who had no idea that her entire existence was the result of a conspiracy. I tucked her in, read her favorite story, kissed her forehead. "I love you, Mommy," she murmured, already half asleep. "I love you too, baby, more than anything in this world." And I meant it. Whatever Eleanor had done, however Harmony had come to exist, she was mine, my daughter, my heart walking around outside my body. Nothing would ever change that. I found Marcus in our bedroom reading something on his tablet. He looked up when I walked in. "Harmony, go down, okay?" "Yeah." She was tired. He went back to his tablet, oblivious, comfortable. I stood there for a long moment trying to find the words. How do you tell someone that their mother has been lying to them for 30 years? How do you explain that the child they adore isn't biologically theirs? How do you destroy someone's world while hoping they'll still love you afterward? "Marcus." Something in my voice made him put down the tablet. "What's wrong?" "You've been acting strange all week. We need to talk. About something important." "Okay." He sat up straighter. "You're scaring me. Is it Harmony? Is something wrong with her? Harmony is fine. Physically, she's perfect. Physically." "What does that mean?" I sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath. "A few weeks ago, I took Harmony to Dr. Okonkwo for those nosebleeds she was having. They ran some blood tests, and the tests revealed something. What kind of something? Marcus Harmony's blood type is AB. "You're type O. I'm type A." His face was blank. He wasn't following. "Blood types are inherited," I continued. Two parents with type O and type A can only produce children with type O or type A. They cannot produce a child with type AB. It's genetically impossible. So there was a mistake. The lab messed up. Dr. Okonkwo ran the test 3 times. There was no mistake. I watched him process this, watched the confusion turn to something else. "What are you saying? That Harmony isn't mine? She's yours in every way that matters. You've been her father for 7 years. You love her. She loves you. That's real. But biologically someone else's sperm was used during our IVF." The color drained from his face. "Did you cheat on me? Is that what you're telling me?" "No." "Marcus, look at me. I have never cheated on you. Never. Not once. I would never do that." "Then how is this possible?" I took both his hands in mine. "I need you to listen to everything I'm about to tell you. All of it. Before you react. Can you do that?" He nodded mute. So I told him. I told him about the mumps, about the orchitis, about the infertility he had never known about. I told him how Eleanor had intercepted his test results paid off. Technicians kept the truth from him for decades. I told him about Dr. Vincent, the bribe, the substitution, Eleanor's letter detailing the entire scheme. I told him about Charles Whitmore, the stolen genetic material, the engineered heir. I told him everything his mother had done, every lie she had told, every manipulation she had orchestrated since he was 12 years old. When I finished, Marcus was crying, silent tears streaming down his face. "That can't be true. My mother wouldn't—" She admitted it to me. Yesterday. To my face. She said she did it to protect the Morrison legacy. She said I should be grateful. Grateful for giving me a baby, for ensuring the family continued with appropriate genetics. He stood up abruptly, paced to the window, stood there with his back to me, shoulders shaking. "My whole life," he said, his voice cracked. "Everything I believed about myself, about my family, about my daughter. It's all a lie." I went to him, wrapped my arms around him from behind. "Harmony is still your daughter, Marcus. That hasn't changed. But I'm not her father. Not really. You're the only father she's ever known, the only father she wants. Biology doesn't define family. Love does. He turned around. His face was ravaged eyes, red cheeks wet. "I need to see her," he said. "I need to see my daughter." He walked past me down the hall to Harmony's room. I followed. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her sleep. Then he went in, knelt by her bed, and took her small hand in his. "She's so beautiful," he whispered. "She looks just like you, and a little like someone else," I said quietly. He flinched, but he didn't let go of her hand. "What do we do now?" he asked. "How do we move forward from this?" I knelt beside him. "We have a choice. We can protect Eleanor's secret, let her keep controlling our lives, pretend none of this ever happened, or we fight her. We expose what she did. We hold her accountable. She's my mother. She's the woman who lied to you your entire life, who violated me, who engineered our daughter like some kind of science experiment. Is that the mother you want to protect?" He was quiet for a long time, looking at Harmony, thinking. Finally, he spoke. "When I was a kid, I used to wonder why my mother was so controlling, why she needed to know everything, manage everything, decide everything. I thought it was just how she was, overprotective, overbearing." He shook his head. "Now I understand. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her secret, her plan. She's been manipulating me since I was 12 years old, and I never saw it." He stood up. "I want to talk to her, confront her. I already did. She threatened me, said she'd take Harmony away if I exposed her." His face hardened. Something I had rarely seen in my gentle, conflict-avoiding husband. "She threatened to take my daughter. She said she has lawyers, connections, power. She said she could bury me." Marcus laughed, a hard, bitter sound. "She's wrong. She's wrong about a lot of things, but especially about that. What do you mean my mother controls the family trust? But she doesn't control me. And she doesn't control Morrison Properties. That's mine. Has been since Dad died." He looked at me with eyes that were still wet, but now held something else. Determination. If she wants a war, she'll get one. And she'll lose. He pulled me into his arms. "I'm sorry, Denise, for everything, for not seeing what she was, for not protecting you, for every time I let her make you feel small. You didn't know. I should have seen it. I should have questioned things. But I was so used to her being in control, I never thought to push back." He pulled away, held me at arm's length. "But that's over now. I know the truth. And I choose you. I choose Harmony. I choose our family over her lies." I felt tears streaming down my own face. "What about Eleanor?" "Eleanor made her choice a long time ago. Now she'll live with the consequences." He took my hand. "Tomorrow we go see your lawyer. Together. And we figure out how to take down my mother." I squeezed his hand. "Are you sure?" "Once we start this, there's no going back. I'm sure." Marcus looked at Harmony one more time, then back at me. "That woman used both of us, violated both of us, and she would have kept lying forever if you hadn't found out." He kissed my forehead. "You saved our family, Denise, by finding the truth. Now let's make sure she never hurts us again." For the first time in weeks, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Peace. Not complete peace. There was still so much to do, so much pain ahead, so many battles to fight. But I wasn't fighting alone anymore. My husband was with me, and together we were going to bring Eleanor Morrison down. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. Marcus and I met with Monique together. She was impressed by his commitment, surprised by his willingness to testify against his own mother. "Most men in your position would protect their family name," she told him. "Choose legacy over truth." "My family is Denise and Harmony," Marcus replied. "Eleanor is just the woman who gave birth to me and lied to me for 3 decades. Keisha flew back to Atlanta but stayed in constant contact. Tammy continued digging into the financial records, finding more evidence of Eleanor's bribes and cover-ups. We built our case piece by piece, document by document. Dr. Vincent provided a formal sworn statement. We flew him up for a recorded deposition where he detailed everything: Eleanor's initial approach, the $200,000 bribe, the substitution of genetic material, the destruction of records. He was terrified of Eleanor's retaliation, but more terrified of perjury charges if he lied. The harder question was Charles Whitmore. Monique and I debated for days about when and how to approach him. In the end, Marcus insisted on being there. He's going to find out either way, Marcus said. Better he hears it from us than reads about it in the press. We met Charles at a neutral location, a private room at a restaurant far from where anyone might recognize us. He was everything the photos suggested. Distinguished, intelligent, wary. "I appreciate you meeting with us, Mr. Whitmore," I began. "I'm sure you're wondering why we asked. I am curious. My family hasn't had much contact with the Morrisons in years, not since Marcus's father passed." I looked at Marcus. He nodded. "Mr. Whitmore, what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. Please let me finish before you respond." Then I told him. The infertility, the IVF, the substitution, Eleanor's letter. The genetic testing that proved Harmony couldn't be Marcus's biological daughter, but matched the genetic profile of someone with B-type blood. Someone like him. Charles sat very still throughout my explanation. His face was unreadable. When I finished, he spoke one word. Proof. I slid a folder across the table. The photograph of Eleanor's letter. Dr. Vincent's sworn statement. The genetic analysis from Dr. Okonkwo. The financial records showing Eleanor's payments. He looked through everything slowly, methodically. Finally, he set down the papers. My father and Theodore Morrison were partners for 30 years. When he died, there were debts, complications. Eleanor helped my mother sort things out. She was generous. He laughed bitterly. Or so I thought. Now I understand why she was so helpful. She was keeping records, building leverage, waiting for the moment she could use it. "We believe she obtained a sample of your genetic material without your knowledge," Monique said. "Possibly from a medical procedure. Do you recall any physical examinations or medical tests from around 7 years ago that Eleanor might have had access to?" Charles thought. "There was a company wellness program. Morrison Properties sponsored it. All executives were encouraged to participate. Complete physicals. Blood work." "Eleanor would have had access to those records," Marcus said quietly. "Yes, she would have." Charles looked at me. "Your daughter, Harmony. She's your biological daughter." "Yes." He closed his eyes. "I have 2 sons, teenagers, a wife who has been with me for 20 years, a life." "I'm not asking you to be Harmony's father," I said quickly. "Marcus is her father in every way that matters." "I'm not trying to disrupt your family or claim anything from you." "Then what do you want?" "I want Eleanor Morrison to face consequences for what she did. To both of us. She violated my body. She stole from you. She manipulated everyone around her for decades. I want her held accountable. And you need my testimony. It would help." Significantly. Charles was quiet for a long time. "My sons," he finally said, "they have a half-sister they've never met. That's up to you. And them. Someday when Harmony is older, she might want to know where part of her came from, but that's a conversation for the future." He nodded slowly. "Eleanor Morrison has been a poison in this community for as long as I can remember. She drove my father into debt. She manipulated my mother. And now I find out she stole my genetic material to engineer a grandchild without anyone's consent." He picked up Monique's business card. "I'll have my attorneys contact you tomorrow. Whatever you need for your case, you'll have it." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Thank you." He stood to leave, then stopped. "Your daughter." "What is she like?" I smiled despite everything. "She's wonderful. Smart, curious, kind. She wants to be a veterinarian because she loves animals. She has my stubborn streak and Marcus's gentle heart." Charles's eyes glistened. "Someday. When she's ready. I'd like to meet her." Someday, I agreed. "When she's ready." He left. Marcus took my hand across the table. "That went better than I expected." "He's a good man," Monique observed, "unlike his co-conspirator." She gathered her papers. "With Whitmore's testimony, we have a strong case. Strong enough to go to trial if Eleanor doesn't settle. Strong enough to destroy her. What are our options?" I asked. "We can pursue criminal charges. What Eleanor did is criminal fraud, multiple counts. She could face prison time. Or we negotiate. She agrees to certain terms, compensates you financially, and we agree not to pursue criminal prosecution. What would those terms look like, whatever you want them to be? Money, property. public acknowledgement of what she did. Removal from the Morrison family trust. You're holding all the cards now, Denise. You get to decide how to play them. I looked at Marcus. What do you want? He thought for a long moment. I want her to admit what she did. Publicly. I want everyone to know who Eleanor Morrison really is. And the money, the inheritance, keep it. Give it away. I don't care. The Morrison fortune was built on manipulation and lies. I don't want any part of it. He squeezed my hand. All I want is for our daughter to grow up knowing that her parents stood up for what was right. That's the legacy I want to leave her. I felt tears threatening again. Then, that's what we'll fight for. Monique smiled. I love clients with principles. Makes my job much more satisfying. She stood. Give me 2 weeks to finalize everything. Then we file suit. And Eleanor Morrison's empire comes crashing down. 2 weeks. 2 weeks until the final battle. 2 weeks until justice. I had waited 10 years to feel like I belonged in the Morrison family. Now I was about to tear that family apart, and I had never felt more like myself. The 2 weeks before the trial were the longest of my life. Eleanor knew something was coming. She had to. Marcus had stopped returning her calls. He refused to attend Sunday dinners. When she showed up at our house unannounced, he told her through the closed door that she wasn't welcome anymore. She didn't take it well. The phone calls started the next day, not to Marcus, to me. I know what you're doing, Denise. Her voice was ice cold. You're turning my son against me. You're destroying this family, but you're going to regret it. I recorded every call, saved every voicemail, built the evidence pile higher and higher. Then came the letters. Hand-delivered by her attorney. Cease and desist demands. Threats of defamation lawsuits. Warnings about the consequences of making false accusations against a prominent member of the community. Monique laughed when she saw them. She's scared, Monique said. This is what scared looks like when you have money. Lawyers throwing paper at a problem hoping it goes away. It's not going away. No, it's not. Reggie called Marcus 3 days before the trial. I was in the room when Marcus put him on speaker. What the hell are you doing? Reggie demanded. Mother is beside herself. She says you're suing her. Your own mother. I'm not suing her. Denise is. Over what? Some misunderstanding about your fertility treatment. Misunderstanding. Marcus laughed bitterly. She paid a doctor $200,000 to use another man's sperm without our consent. She's known I was infertile since I was 12 and never told me. She engineered my daughter's genetics like she was breeding horses. That's not a misunderstanding, Reggie. That's a crime. Silence on the other end. Even if that's true, Reggie finally said, and I'm not saying it is, why air it publicly? Why drag the family name through the mud? We can handle this privately. Mother has money. She can make this go away. I don't want it to go away. I want her to face consequences. You're going to destroy everything Dad built, the company, the reputation, everything. Dad built his legacy on hard work and integrity. Mother built hers on lies and manipulation. I know which one I want to honor. Marcus hung up. He was shaking. I took his hand. You okay, No? But I will be, after this is over. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 3 a.m. and went to Harmony's room. She was sleeping peacefully, clutching the stuffed elephant Marcus had given her for her 5th birthday, completely unaware that tomorrow her family would be torn apart in a courtroom. We had decided not to tell her yet. She was too young to understand, too young to carry the weight of knowing her existence was the result of fraud and manipulation. Someday, when she was older, we would explain everything. But not yet. I smoothed her hair back from her forehead. I'm doing this for you, I whispered. So you can grow up knowing that your parents stood for something, that we didn't let people get away with hurting us just because they had money and power. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The morning of the trial, I put on my best professional outfit. Navy blue dress, pearl earrings my mama had given me for my nursing school graduation. Hair pulled back neat and professional. Marcus wore a suit I had never seen before. When I asked about it, he shrugged. Didn't want to wear anything she bought me. Went out yesterday and got something new. Something that's just mine. We drove to the courthouse in silence. Keisha and Tammy were meeting us there. Mama had flown up from Baltimore and was staying at a hotel nearby. She would be in the gallery, she said, praying for justice. The courthouse was an old stone building downtown, impressive, intimidating, the kind of place where lives were changed forever. Monique met us on the steps. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "But ready." "Good. That's exactly how you should feel." She handed me a folder. "Final witness list. Final evidence summary. The judge is Honorable Patricia Williams. She's fair, thorough, and doesn't suffer fools. If our case is as strong as I think it is, she'll see through Eleanor's lawyers. And if it's not, then we have a problem. But I don't think we will." We walked into the courthouse together. Marcus held my hand so tight it almost hurt. "Whatever happens in there," he said, "I love you. I believe you, and I'm proud of you for fighting." I squeezed back. "Let's go take down your mother." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, hard benches, an American flag behind the judge's seat. It smelled like old paper and anxiety. Eleanor was already there when we arrived. She sat at the defendant's table with two lawyers in expensive suits. She was wearing a cream-colored dress and pearls, looking every inch the respectable society matron she pretended to be. When she saw us, her eyes went cold. She didn't acknowledge Marcus at all. Just looked through him like he wasn't there. I felt him stiffen beside me. "Don't let her get to you," I murmured. "That's what she wants." We took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Monique arranged her papers. I tried to calm my racing heart. The gallery behind us was filling up. I saw Keisha and Tammy, Mama in her Sunday-best lips moving in silent prayer, Charles Whitmore looking uncomfortable but determined, Dr. Okonkwo, who had agreed to testify about the genetic testing, and reporters. At least half a dozen notebooks-ready recording devices visible. This case had attracted attention. A wealthy society matron accused of fertility fraud. The press was hungry for every detail. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Patricia Williams presiding." The judge entered. She was a black woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes behind reading glasses. She looked like someone who had seen everything and could not be fooled by anything. "Please be seated," she said. Her voice was calm but carried authority. "We are here today for the matter of Morrison versus Morrison. This is a civil case involving allegations of medical fraud, violation of informed consent, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." She looked at both tables. "I have reviewed the filings from both parties. This is clearly a complex and sensitive matter involving family relationships and medical procedures. I expect everyone in this courtroom to conduct themselves with professionalism and respect. Is that understood?" "Yes, Your Honor," both sides responded. "Counselor Davis, you may proceed with your opening statement." Monique stood. She was calm, confident, every inch the professional. "Your Honor, this case is about betrayal. The deepest kind of betrayal. The kind that happens when someone you should be able to trust violates your body, your marriage, and your fundamental right to make decisions about your own family." She walked toward the judge. "The evidence will show that Eleanor Morrison, the defendant, orchestrated a scheme spanning decades. She discovered that her son Marcus was infertile when he was 12 years old. Instead of telling him the truth, she hid it. For 30 years, she let him believe he was capable of fathering children when she knew he was not." Monique turned to look at Eleanor. When Marcus married Denise Morrison, the plaintiff, and they struggled to conceive, Eleanor saw an opportunity. She selected a fertility clinic run by a doctor willing to be bribed. She paid him $200,000 in cash to use genetic material from another man, a man named Charles Whitmore, instead of her son's sperm. All without the knowledge or consent of either Marcus or Denise. Gasps from the gallery. The reporters were scribbling furiously. The result of this scheme is Harmony Morrison, now 7 years old, a beautiful, innocent child who has no idea that her very existence was engineered by her grandmother through fraud and deception. Monique returned to our table. "We will present testimony from the doctor who performed the procedure, who will confirm that Eleanor paid him to substitute the genetic material. We will present documentary evidence, including a letter in Eleanor's own handwriting detailing the arrangement. We will present financial records showing the bribes, and we will present genetic evidence proving that Marcus Morrison cannot be Harmony's biological father." She looked directly at the judge. Eleanor Morrison believed her money and her social position made her untouchable. She believed she could play God with other people's bodies and families without consequences. Today, we prove her wrong. She sat down. Eleanor's lead attorney stood. Harrison Webb. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who charged $1,000 an hour and was worth every penny if you were guilty and needed to look innocent. Your Honor, he began smoothly, what we have here is a family dispute that has been blown wildly out of proportion. My client Eleanor Morrison is a pillar of this community, a philanthropist, a devoted mother and grandmother. The accusations against her are not only false but deeply hurtful. He paced slowly. The plaintiff, Denise Morrison, has constructed an elaborate conspiracy theory based on genetic test results she doesn't fully understand and the testimony of a disgraced doctor who lost his medical license. She has twisted innocent actions into sinister plots. She has taken a grandmother's love for her grandchild and reframed it as obsession. He shook his head sadly. The truth is much simpler. Marcus Morrison has always been capable of fathering children. The fertility treatments were standard procedures performed with full consent of all parties, and Eleanor Morrison's only crime is loving her family too much. He returned to his seat. The evidence will show that this lawsuit is nothing more than a vindictive attack by a daughter-in-law who has always resented her mother-in-law's involvement in the family. We ask that the court see through these baseless accusations and find in favor of the defendant. He sat down. Eleanor patted his arm approvingly. Judge Williams made a note. Counselor Davis, call your first witness. Monique stood. We call Dr. Gerald Vincent. The courtroom doors opened, and there he was. Gerald Vincent looking slightly better than when I had last seen him. He had shaved, put on a suit, but his eyes were still haunted. He walked to the witness stand like a man walking to his execution. This was it. The beginning of the end for Eleanor Morrison. Dr. Vincent was sworn in. His hand trembled slightly on the Bible. Please state your name and former occupation for the record, Monique began. Gerald Vincent. I was a fertility specialist. I ran Coastal Fertility Associates for 25 years. You say was. You no longer practice medicine? No, I lost my license 3 years ago. Why did you lose your license? Vincent swallowed hard. Multiple ethics violations. There were several lawsuits alleging that I had performed unauthorized procedures. What kind of unauthorized procedures, using genetic material that patients had not consented to? The courtroom murmured. Judge Williams tapped her gavel lightly. Dr. Vincent, do you know the defendant, Eleanor Morrison? Yes. How do you know her? She was a client, or rather, she arranged for her son and daughter-in-law to be clients at my clinic. Did Mrs. Morrison ever meet with you privately outside of the normal patient consultation process? Yes. She came to see me about a month before the Morrisons were scheduled to begin their IVF cycle. What did she want? Vincent looked down at his hands. She told me her son was infertile, had been since childhood due to complications from mumps. She said she had kept this information from him his entire life, and she said she needed my help to ensure that her daughter-in-law became pregnant anyway. Help how she wanted me to use sperm from a donor she had selected instead of her son's sample. The murmuring grew louder. Judge Williams tapped again. Did Mrs. Morrison offer you anything in exchange for this service? Yes. $200,000 in cash. Did you accept? Vincent closed his eyes. Yes. I accepted. Monique let that hang in the air for a moment. So just to be clear, Doctor, Vincent Eleanor Morrison paid you $200,000 to secretly replace her son's sperm with another man's sperm during an IVF procedure without the knowledge or consent of either Marcus or Denise Morrison. That is correct. Do you have any documentation of this arrangement? Eleanor gave me a letter outlining the terms. She thought she had destroyed all copies. She didn't know I kept one. Monique held up the photograph I had taken in Florida. Is this the letter? Yes. That's Eleanor Morrison's handwriting and signature. Your Honor, we submit this document as Plaintiff's Exhibit A. Judge Williams examined the letter carefully. Her expression remained neutral, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Did you perform the IVF procedure on Denise Morrison? Yes. And did you use Eleanor Morrison's selected donor material instead of Marcus Morrison's sperm? Yes. Did either Marcus or Denise Morrison know about this substitution? No. They believed they were undergoing a standard IVF procedure using their own genetic material. Why did you agree to this? Dr. Vincent? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. I was greedy. Eleanor Morrison offered me more money than I made in a year, and I told myself it didn't really matter. The couple would get a baby. The baby would be healthy. Everyone would be happy. I convinced myself I was doing something good. He looked up at the judge. I was wrong. I violated the trust of my patients. I violated medical ethics. I violated the law. And I've spent every day since regretting it. Monique nodded. Thank you, Dr. Vincent. No further questions. Harrison Webb stood for cross-examination. He approached the witness stand with a predatory smile. Dr. Vincent, you testified that you lost your medical license for ethics violations. Multiple violations, correct? Yes. So, you're a liar and a cheat by your own admission. I made serious mistakes. You were sued multiple times. Paid out settlements. Were accused of exactly this kind of fraud by other patients. Yes, so why should this court believe anything you say? Vincent straightened slightly. Because I have nothing left to lose. I've already lost my career, my reputation, my marriage. I'm testifying today because it's the right thing to do, because Eleanor Morrison used me to commit a crime against an innocent couple, and I'm tired of carrying that guilt alone. You're testifying because the plaintiff promised you immunity from further prosecution if you cooperated. Isn't that true? No one promised me anything. I'm testifying because I want to. Isn't it possible that you're lying now to save yourself, that you made up this entire story about Eleanor Morrison to deflect blame from your own crimes? I have documentary evidence. The letter from Eleanor Morrison, financial records showing her payments, documents that could have been fabricated. Her signature is on the letter, her handwriting. Have it analyzed if you don't believe me. Webb paused. That clearly wasn't the response he expected. Let me ask you this, Dr. Vincent. Did you ever actually see Eleanor Morrison hand you $200,000 in cash? No. It was wired to a shell company I controlled. So you have no direct proof that the money came from her. The wire transfer records show it originated from an account in her name. Webb tried another angle. You testified that Eleanor Morrison told you her son was infertile. Did you verify this yourself? Did you actually test Marcus Morrison's sperm? Yes, I ran a standard analysis. And Vincent hesitated. His counts were extremely low, consistent with what Eleanor had told me. But not zero, no. Not zero. So it's possible, however unlikely, that Marcus Morrison could have fathered a child naturally, technically possible. Practically speaking, the odds were less than 1%. But not impossible. Monique stood. Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is splitting hairs. The relevant fact is that Dr. Vincent was paid to substitute genetic material without consent regardless of whether conception was theoretically possible. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Webb. Webb looked frustrated. He tried a few more angles but couldn't shake Vincent's testimony. Finally, he returned to his seat. Judge Williams looked at Vincent. You may step down, Dr. Vincent, but you are ordered to remain available for recall if needed. Vincent left the stand looking exhausted but relieved. One down, several more to go, but the damage was done. The judge had seen Eleanor's letter, had heard Vincent's confession. The foundation of Eleanor's defense was already crumbling, and we were just getting started. We call Charles Whitmore III. Charles walked to the stand with dignity. He was clearly uncomfortable, but he had come prepared to tell the truth. Mr. Whitmore, Monique began. Can you describe your family's relationship with the Morrison family? Our fathers were business partners for over 30 years. Theodore Morrison and my father built Morrison Properties together. After my father passed away, there were some financial complications. Eleanor Morrison helped my mother sort them out. You say, helped. Was she acting out of generosity? Charles paused. I believed so at the time. Now I understand she was building leverage, keeping my family indebted to her. Did you ever provide a genetic sample, a sperm sample, to any fertility clinic? None. Never. Did you ever consent to having your genetic material used for reproductive purposes by anyone? Absolutely not. Are you aware of any way Eleanor Morrison could have obtained a sample of your genetic material? Charles took a breath. Several years ago, Morrison Properties sponsored a company wellness program. All executives were encouraged to participate. Complete physical examinations, blood work, various tests. I participated. Who had access to the results of those examinations? The company's human resources department and the executives, including Eleanor Morrison, who was still involved in company operations at that time. Monique held up another document. Mr. Whitmore, we have obtained records from the medical facility that conducted those wellness examinations. Those records show that additional samples were collected from you during your physical, samples that were not part of the standard wellness protocol. Were you aware of this? I was not. Not until your investigators showed me this documentation. Your Honor, we submit these medical records as Plaintiff's Exhibit D. Judge Williams reviewed the documents. How do you feel, Mr. Whitmore, knowing that your genetic material may have been used without your consent? Charles looked directly at Eleanor for the first time. Violated. Angry. This woman stole something from me, something intimate and personal. She used it to create a child I never knew existed, a child I had no opportunity to know or support or love. His voice cracked slightly. I have a daughter. A biological daughter named Harmony, and I didn't know she existed until a few weeks ago. Eleanor Morrison took that from me. She took it from my wife. She took it from my sons, who have a half-sister they've never met. He turned back to the judge. Whatever the outcome of this trial, I want the court to know that I will be pursuing my own legal action against Eleanor Morrison for what she did to me and my family. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. No further questions. Harrison Webb's cross-examination was brief. He tried to suggest that Charles's samples could have been switched or contaminated at the medical facility, that there was no direct proof Eleanor had orchestrated the theft. But Charles held firm, and his quiet dignity made Eleanor's lawyer look like a bully. After Charles stepped down, Monique called me to the stand. The walk from the plaintiff's table to the witness stand felt like a mile. I could feel Eleanor's eyes on me the entire way. Cold, hateful, promising retribution. I didn't look at her. I looked at Marcus, at Mama, at Keisha and Tammy, the people who believed in me, the people I was fighting for. I was sworn in. Mrs. Morrison Monique began gently. Can you describe your relationship with your mother-in-law prior to discovering the truth about your IVF procedure? I took a breath. Complicated. Eleanor never fully accepted me into the family. She made it clear from the beginning that she didn't think I was good enough for her son, but I tried. For 10 years, I tried to earn her approval. I thought if I was patient enough, if I was good enough, she would eventually see me as family. Did she know? I realize now that she never intended to accept me. I was just a means to an end, a vessel for producing the heir she wanted. Can you describe the IVF process from your perspective? It was exhausting, emotionally and physically. But I did everything they asked because I wanted a baby so desperately. Marcus and I had been trying for years. The IVF was supposed to be our miracle. Did you have any concerns about the clinic or the procedure? Eleanor chose the clinic. She insisted on that particular doctor. At the time, I thought she was being helpful. Now I know she was controlling the process to ensure the outcome she wanted. When did you first learn that something was wrong? When my daughter's pediatrician ran genetic tests for a minor medical issue, the blood types didn't match. Marcus couldn't possibly be Harmony's biological father. What was your reaction? My voice wavered. I was devastated, confused. I thought maybe there had been some mistake. I had never cheated on my husband, never even considered it. So how could my daughter have a different father? What did you do next? I investigated. With the help of my friends and a paralegal, I tracked down Dr. Vincent. He told me everything about Eleanor's scheme, about the bribery, about the substitution. I looked at the judge. I discovered that my body had been used without my consent, that my daughter's genetics had been engineered by my mother-in-law, that my husband had been lied to his entire life. Everything I believed about my family was false. How has this affected you? Tears were streaming down my face now. I can't sleep. I have nightmares about what was done to me. I look at my daughter and feel overwhelming love mixed with grief for what was taken from us. I look at my husband and see the pain of learning his mother betrayed him so completely. I wiped my eyes. Eleanor Morrison violated my body. She violated my marriage. She violated my trust. And she did it all while smiling in my face and making me feel like I should be grateful. What do you want from this trial? I want accountability. I want Eleanor Morrison to admit what she did. I want the world to know that money and social position don't give you the right to play God with other people's lives. I looked at Eleanor for the first time. I want her to face consequences, real consequences, for once in her privileged life. No further questions. Harrison Webb stood. He tried to paint me as a vindictive daughter-in-law who had never fit into the Morrison family. He suggested I had fabricated evidence, manipulated witnesses, turned my husband against his mother out of jealousy and spite. I answered every question calmly. I didn't lose my temper. I didn't let him rattle me. Isn't it true, Mrs. Morrison, that you've always resented Eleanor's involvement in your family? I resented being treated like I wasn't good enough. I resented being made to feel like an outsider in my own marriage. But I never imagined she was capable of something like this. You have no direct evidence that Eleanor Morrison personally orchestrated this scheme. You're relying on the word of a disgraced doctor and circumstantial financial records. I have her letter, in her own handwriting, with her own signature, detailing exactly what she did. A letter you obtained through questionable means. I obtained it legally. Dr. Vincent gave it to me voluntarily. Webb kept trying, but he couldn't shake me. Finally, he gave up. I stepped down from the witness stand. Marcus squeezed my hand as I returned to my seat. "You were amazing," he whispered. I didn't feel amazing. I felt exhausted and raw and exposed, but I also felt something else, powerful. I had told my truth. In a court of law. In front of reporters who would share it with the world. Whatever happened next, Eleanor Morrison could never pretend to be the respectable society matron again. Her mask had finally slipped, and everyone could see the monster underneath. The defense calls Eleanor Morrison. I watched my mother-in-law walk to the witness stand. Even now, facing the destruction of everything she had built, she moved like a queen. Head high, shoulders back, the picture of dignified composure. But I knew her now. I could see the cracks in her armor, the tightness around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. She was afraid. Good. Harrison Webb led her through a sympathetic narrative. Eleanor, the devoted mother. Eleanor, the generous grandmother. Eleanor, the victim of a vindictive daughter-in-law who had never appreciated her kindness. I always tried to welcome Denise into our family, Eleanor said smoothly. But she kept her distance. She seemed to resent my involvement with Marcus and Harmony. Can you explain the letter that has been submitted as evidence? Webb asked. Eleanor shook her head sadly. That letter is a fabrication. I never wrote it. Dr. Vincent created it himself to deflect blame for his own crimes. What about the financial records showing payments from your accounts to Dr. Vincent's shell company? I made donations to many medical causes over the years. If some of that money ended up with Dr. Vincent, it was without my knowledge or intent. Did you know your son was infertile? Of course not. Marcus had fertility tests. The results were normal. Did you orchestrate the substitution of genetic material during the IVF procedure? Eleanor looked directly at the judge. Absolutely not. I am a mother and a grandmother. I would never do anything to harm my son or my granddaughter. These accusations are hurtful and completely false. Webb nodded sympathetically. No further questions. Monique rose for cross-examination. Her expression was calm, but I recognized the gleam in her eyes. She had been waiting for this. Mrs. Morrison, you testified that you never wrote the letter submitted as Exhibit A. Is that correct? Correct. It's a forgery. We have had the letter analyzed by a handwriting expert. Would you like to see her report? Eleanor's composure flickered. I'm sure your expert will say whatever you paid her to say. The expert is Dr. Linda Chin, one of the most respected forensic document analysts in the country. She concluded with 97% certainty that the handwriting and signature on that letter are yours. Monique held up the report. She noted particular characteristics of your handwriting, the way you form your capital letters, the slant of your script, the distinctive curl on your signature, all of which match samples obtained from other documents you've signed. Those documents could have been tampered with. We obtained samples from your bank, your attorney's office, and public records. Are you suggesting all of those institutions conspired against you? Eleanor said nothing. Let's move on. You testified that you didn't know your son was infertile, but we have records from Dr. Michael Patterson, your family pediatrician, showing that Marcus was diagnosed with severe oligospermia following his mumps infection at age 12. Monique held up another document. These records indicate that you, Mrs. Morrison, were informed of the diagnosis. You signed the acknowledgement form. Your signature is right here. The courtroom went silent. Would you like to explain how you signed a document acknowledging your son's infertility if you didn't know about it? Eleanor's face had gone pale. That was 30 years ago. I don't remember every document I signed. You don't remember being told your son would likely never father children, The doctors said there was a chance, a small chance. So you did know. Silence. Mrs. Morrison, did you know your son was infertile? Eleanor's mask finally cracked. I was protecting him, she burst out. He was 12 years old, a child. How was I supposed to tell him he would never be a real man? How was I supposed to destroy his confidence before he even had a chance to build it? The courtroom erupted. Judge Williams banged her gavel. Order! Order in this court! Eleanor was crying now. Real tears, not the staged sympathy of her earlier testimony. Everything I did for my family, for the Morrison legacy. My husband built something from nothing. He worked his whole life to create a name, a fortune, a future. And I was supposed to let it all die because of a childhood illness. She looked at Marcus for the first time. I couldn't let the Morrison line end with you. I couldn't. So I did what I had to do. I found a way to continue the family, to give you an heir you couldn't produce yourself. Mrs. Morrison Monique said quietly, Are you admitting that you orchestrated the substitution of genetic material during your son and daughter-in-law's IVF procedure? Eleanor's lawyer jumped up. Objection. My client is clearly distressed. She doesn't know what she's saying. Your Honor, opposing counsel has spent the entire trial claiming these accusations were baseless. Now the defendant is confessing on the stand. I'll allow it, Judge Williams said. Answer the question, Mrs. Morrison. Eleanor looked around the courtroom, at her lawyers, at the reporters, at Marcus, who was staring at her with an expression of absolute devastation. She had no way out. Yes, she finally said. Her voice was barely a whisper. I arranged for Dr. Vincent to use different genetic material. I selected the donor myself. Charles Whitmore. From a good family, good genetics. Someone who would give my grandchild the best possible start. Without the knowledge or consent of your son or daughter-in-law, they didn't need to know. It was better that they didn't know. Marcus could be a father without feeling like less of a man. Denise got the baby she wanted. Everyone was happy. Everyone was happy. Monique's voice was sharp. Your son just found out his entire identity is a lie. Your daughter-in-law just learned she was violated without her consent. Charles Whitmore just discovered he has a daughter he never knew existed. Does that sound like everyone is happy to you? Eleanor had no answer. I have no further questions, Monique said. I think the defendant has said enough. Eleanor stumbled back to her seat. Harrison Webb didn't even look at her. His case had just collapsed in spectacular fashion. Judge Williams was writing notes furiously. This court will take a 1-hour recess. When we return, I will hear closing arguments. She stood. And Mrs. Morrison, do not even think about leaving this jurisdiction. Eleanor just sat there, broken, exposed. The monster had finally been unmasked, and the whole world had seen. The closing arguments were almost anticlimactic after Eleanor's breakdown on the stand. Monique summarized our case methodically. The documentary evidence, the financial records, the testimony from Dr. Vincent and Charles Whitmore, and most damning of all, Eleanor's own confession. This is not a case of he said, she said, Monique concluded. The defendant admitted on this stand in front of this court that she orchestrated a scheme to violate her daughter-in-law's bodily autonomy and deceive her own son. She showed no remorse, no understanding of why what she did was wrong. She still believes she was justified. That is perhaps the most disturbing thing of all. Harrison Webb tried to salvage what he could. He argued that Eleanor's confession was made under duress, that she was an elderly woman who had been badgered and confused, that whatever mistakes she had made were motivated by love for her family. Judge Williams listened to both sides without expression. After closing arguments, she retired to her chambers. We waited. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. I couldn't sit still. I paced the hallway outside the courtroom. Marcus sat on a bench, head in his hands. Keisha brought us coffee that went cold untouched. What if she rules against us? I asked Monique. What if Eleanor's lawyers convinced her somehow? They didn't, Monique said. You saw that courtroom. You saw Eleanor's confession. No judge in America would rule in her favor after that. But what if Monique put a hand on my shoulder? Then we appeal. Then we keep fighting. But Denise, trust me. We won. The bailiff appeared. Judge Williams is ready to deliver her ruling. We filed back into the courtroom. Eleanor was already there, flanked by her lawyers. She looked like she had aged 10 years in the past 3 hours. Marcus sat beside me, took my hand. All rise. Judge Williams entered. She sat. We sat. She took a long moment looking at both tables. Then she began. In my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many disturbing cases. Fraud, abuse, manipulation. But I must say, this case is in a category all its own. She looked at Eleanor. Mrs. Morrison, you have admitted under oath that you orchestrated a scheme to secretly substitute genetic material during your daughter-in-law's IVF procedure. You did this without the knowledge or consent of either your son or his wife. You paid a doctor $200,000 to commit medical fraud, and you justified all of this by claiming you were protecting your family legacy. Judge Williams shook her head. Let me be very clear about something. What you did was not protection. It was violation. It was control. It was the arrogant belief that your judgment about other people's lives matters more than their own autonomy. She turned to me. Mrs. Morrison, Denise Morrison. I want to acknowledge the courage it took to bring this case. You could have accepted the status quo. You could have protected Eleanor's secret for the sake of family peace. Instead, you chose truth and accountability. That is admirable. She picked up a document. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. I heard myself gasp. Marcus squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. On the count of medical fraud, the evidence conclusively demonstrates that Eleanor Morrison paid Dr. Gerald Vincent to perform an unauthorized medical procedure. This court finds Eleanor Morrison liable and awards compensatory damages in the amount of $350,000, representing the bribes paid to Dr. Vincent, plus additional compensation for emotional distress. On the count of violation of informed consent, the evidence shows that neither Marcus nor Denise Morrison consented to the use of genetic material from anyone other than themselves. This court finds Eleanor Morrison liable and awards compensatory damages of $500,000. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, the evidence shows that Eleanor Morrison's actions caused severe and lasting emotional harm to both the plaintiff and her husband. This court finds Eleanor Morrison liable and awards compensatory damages of $250,000. Judge Williams set down the paper. In total, the defendant is ordered to pay $1,100,000 in damages. $1.1 million. Eleanor flinched like she had been struck. But the judge wasn't done. Additionally, this court is referring this case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. The actions described in this trial, including medical fraud, theft of genetic material, and conspiracy, may constitute criminal offenses that are beyond the scope of this civil proceeding. Criminal prosecution. Eleanor could go to prison. Finally, Judge Williams looked at Eleanor with something like pity mixed with contempt. Mrs. Morrison, I want you to understand something. You are not being punished for wanting grandchildren. You are not being punished for loving your family. You are being punished for believing that your desires gave you the right to violate other people's bodies and autonomy. She leaned forward. Money cannot buy you the right to play God with other people's lives. Social position does not exempt you from the consequences of your actions, and family legacy is not more important than basic human decency. She banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed out to file their stories. Eleanor's lawyers huddled around her, speaking in urgent whispers. The gallery buzzed with excited chatter. but I sat perfectly still. It was over. We had won. Eleanor Morrison, the woman who had made me feel worthless for 10 years, the woman who had violated my body and manipulated my family, was facing financial ruin and possible prison time. And I had done that. Me. The nurse from East Baltimore who wasn't good enough for the Morrison family. Marcus pulled me into his arms. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." I looked over his shoulder at Eleanor. She was sitting alone now, her lawyers having stepped away to confer. She looked small, old, broken. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, triumph, revenge, but mostly I just felt tired and ready to move on. The aftermath of the trial was a whirlwind. The story made national news. Wealthy society matron convicted of fertility fraud. Morrison family scandal exposes decades of deception. The headlines went on for days. Eleanor's social circle abandoned her almost immediately. The charity boards she sat on asked for her resignation. The country club where she had been a member for 40 years quietly terminated her membership. Invitations stopped coming. Phone calls went unanswered. The woman who had spent her life building a reputation watched it crumble in a matter of weeks. 3 months after the civil trial, the district attorney filed criminal charges. Medical fraud, conspiracy, theft of genetic material. Eleanor's lawyers negotiated a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial and the additional publicity that would come with it. She pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts. The sentence was 4 years in federal prison. I watched the news coverage of her being led into the correctional facility. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, head bowed to avoid the cameras. She looked nothing like the imposing matriarch who had once made me feel so small. I thought I would feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. Not for Eleanor. She deserved every consequence she received, but sad for what her choices had cost everyone. Her son who had to watch his mother be led away in handcuffs. Her grandchildren who would grow up knowing their grandmother was in prison. Her legacy, which would now forever be tainted by scandal instead of remembered for philanthropy. She had destroyed her own family trying to control it. There was a certain poetry in that. Marcus took the news hard. Despite everything Eleanor had done, she was still his mother. He visited her once in prison. Came back and didn't speak for 2 days. I didn't ask what they talked about. Some things are between a son and his mother, no matter what that mother has done. The Morrison family fractured completely. Reggie sided with Eleanor to the end. He blamed me for everything. Said I had manipulated Marcus into turning against his own mother. He tried to contest the civil judgment, claiming Eleanor's assets should pass to her children rather than being seized for damages. The court disagreed. Sylvia was more complicated. She had always followed Eleanor's lead, but watching her mother's confession on the witness stand shook something loose in her. She called me a month after the trial. I didn't know, she said. I swear I didn't know what she had done. I believe you. I'm sorry, Denise, for how I treated you. For how the whole family treated you. We were wrong. It was the first genuine apology I had ever received from a Morrison. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. We weren't going to be best friends. Too much had happened, but it was a start. Charles Whitmore handled everything with grace. He and his wife came to see us a few weeks after the trial. It was awkward at first. How do you make small talk with the man whose DNA your daughter carries? But Charles was kind and his wife was understanding, and gradually the tension eased. We're not looking to disrupt your family, Charles said. Harmony has a father. Marcus has been her dad for 7 years. We don't want to change that. But his wife added we would like to know her, when she's ready, when you think it's appropriate. We agreed to take it slow, start with occasional visits, let relationships develop naturally. It wasn't a perfect solution. There probably wasn't a perfect solution to a situation this complicated, but it was something, a path forward. Harmony remained blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around her. We had decided to wait until she was older to explain everything. 7 was too young to understand that her grandmother had engineered her existence through fraud. Too young to process that her daddy wasn't her biological father. Too young to carry that weight. Someday we would tell her, when she was ready, when she asked questions we couldn't avoid. But for now, she was allowed to be a child. She knew Grandma Eleanor had gone away. We told her grandma had done something wrong and had to face consequences. Harmony was sad but resilient. Kids are tougher than we give them credit for. And she had us, me and Marcus, her parents in every way that mattered. Biology had never defined our family. Love did. 1 year after the trial, I barely recognized my own life. We sold the house in the Morrison neighborhood. Too many memories. Too many reminders of Eleanor's shadow over everything we did. We bought a smaller place across town in a neighborhood with big trees and friendly neighbors and no one who knew the Morrison name. Marcus left Morrison Properties. He couldn't stay there, not with Reggie fighting him at every turn, not with the whispers and the stares, and the constant reminders of what his family had become. He took his share of the company in a buyout and started fresh. He opened his own architectural firm. Small, humble, nothing like the Morrison empire, but it was his. Built on his own talent and hard work, not on his mother's manipulation. I went back to nursing, but this time I changed specialties. I transferred to the maternal fetal medicine unit. High-risk pregnancies. Women facing difficult choices about their bodies and their babies. I wanted to be there for them in ways no one had been there for me. Every time I helped a patient understand her options, every time I made sure she had all the information she needed to make her own choices, I felt like I was healing a little piece of what Eleanor had broken. The settlement money sat in an account for months. I didn't want to touch it. It felt tainted somehow like blood money. But Monique convinced me to think of it differently. That money represents accountability, she said. Eleanor paid for what she did. Using it to build something good doesn't dishonor what you went through. It transforms it. So we created the Harmony Foundation, named after my daughter, dedicated to supporting victims of reproductive coercion and medical consent violations. We funded legal aid for women fighting to control their own bodies. We supported research into consent practices at fertility clinics. We advocated for stronger laws protecting patients from the kind of fraud Eleanor had committed. The foundation wasn't revenge, it was redemption. Taking the worst thing that had ever happened to me and using it to help others. That felt right. Marcus and I renewed our vows on our 11th anniversary. Not a big ceremony, just us Harmony, our closest friends, and Pastor Geneva from our church. We stood in our new backyard under a simple arbor covered in white flowers and promised to love each other again. But this time, the promises meant something different. I promise to always tell you the truth, Marcus said, even when it's hard. Even when it hurts, no more secrets between us. I promise to trust you, I said, to believe in us, to never let anyone come between our family again. Harmony was our flower girl. She took the job very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration. When we kissed, she made a face and everyone laughed. It was perfect. Not perfect like a fairy tale. Perfect like real life. Messy and complicated and full of people who had been through hell together and come out the other side. The sister circle remained my rock. Keisha visited every few months from Atlanta. She was planning to open a second salon location and wanted my opinion on everything from paint colors to marketing strategies. I loved that she asked, even though I knew nothing about running a salon. Tammy got promoted at her law firm. Senior paralegal now with her own office and a team of juniors to boss around. She called me her most interesting case ever, which I chose to take as a compliment. Mama moved closer after everything settled down. She said she was tired of being 3 hours away from her only granddaughter. Really, I think she was tired of worrying about me and wanted to be close enough to help. She babysat Harmony every Friday night so Marcus and I could have date nights, real date nights, dinners and movies and walks in the park, things we had never made time for when we were too busy trying to please Eleanor. I learned to make time for myself too. It sounds simple, but for years I had defined myself by my relationships to others. Marcus's wife, Harmony's mother, Eleanor's disappointment. I had forgotten who Denise was outside of those roles. I started running. Nothing serious, just morning jogs around the neighborhood, but there was something about moving my body, about feeling strong and capable that healed something deep inside me. I joined a book club, read novels for pleasure for the first time since college, discussed characters and themes with women who became friends. Real friends, not society connections who were only interested in my Morrison affiliation. I took a pottery class and made terrible lumpy bowls that Harmony insisted on using for her cereal. I tried yoga and hated it. I learned to cook Thai food and burned the pad Thai 3 times before getting it right. Small things, silly things, but they added up to something bigger. A life that was mine. Not designed by Eleanor. Not lived for Marcus. Not sacrificed for Harmony. Mine. And it was beautiful. 2 years have passed since I sat in Dr. Okonkwo's office and heard the words that changed everything. Harmony is 9 now. She's in 4th grade, obsessed with horses and graphic novels, and a boy named Tyler, who she claims is just a friend, but blushes whenever his name comes up. She's smart and stubborn and kind, and every day I'm grateful she's mine. She knows the truth now. We told her on her 8th birthday as much as she could understand. That Grandma Eleanor made some very bad choices, that Daddy isn't her biological father, but loves her just the same, that there's a man named Charles who is part of where she came from, and he would like to know her if she's interested. She had questions. So many questions. We answered them all as honestly as we could. In the end, she looked at Marcus with those big brown eyes and said, "You're still my daddy, right?" "Always," he said. "Forever and always." That was enough for her. Kids are wiser than we give them credit for. They understand that love is what makes a family, not blood. Charles and his wife come to Harmony's birthday parties now. She calls them Uncle Charles and Aunt Patricia. Their sons, Harmony's half-brothers, taught her to play video games and tease her mercilessly the way older brothers do. It's not a traditional family structure, but it works. We made it work. Eleanor was released from prison 6 months ago. Early release for good behavior. I haven't seen her, neither has Marcus. She's living with Reggie now, a shadow of the woman she used to be. The Morrison fortune is largely gone eaten up by legal fees and settlements and the cost of maintaining appearances when there's nothing left to maintain. I don't hate her anymore. I did for a long time. Hated her with a fire that burned through every part of me. But hate is exhausting. It takes energy that could be spent on better things. So I let it go. Not forgiveness exactly. What Eleanor did was unforgivable. But acceptance. Acceptance that she made her choices and faced her consequences, and my job now is to live my life, not to keep punishing her for ruining it. The best revenge, as they say, is living well, and I am living well. I'm sitting on my porch as I tell you this story. It's a Sunday evening. The sun is setting, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. I can hear Harmony inside, practicing piano, the same song over and over, getting a little better each time. Marcus is in the kitchen making dinner. His specialty, pasta carbonara. He learned to cook after we moved, said he wanted to contribute more to our household. The first few attempts were disasters, but he stuck with it. Now he's actually good. I have a glass of wine in my hand, a book on the table beside me. A good life spread out in front of me like a gift I never expected to receive. If you had told me 3 years ago that this is where I would end up, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have said that the Morrison family was too powerful, that Eleanor would never face consequences, that I would spend my whole life feeling like I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that I was just the girl from East Baltimore who got lucky. But here's what I learned. Nobody is too powerful to face consequences. Money can delay justice, but it can't prevent it. Social position can protect you for a while, but the truth has a way of coming out. And when it does, all the money and status in the world won't save you. I learned that family is not defined by blood or genetics or who engineered your existence. Family is the people who show up for you, who love you when you're broken, who fight beside you when you can't fight alone. My family is Marcus and Harmony. It's Keisha and Tammy and Mama and Pastor Geneva. It's everyone who held me together when I was falling apart. I learned that your body belongs to you. No one, not a doctor, not a mother-in-law, not anyone has the right to make decisions about your reproduction without your consent. This seems obvious, but it's not. There are people out there right now facing pressure to have children or not have children, to make choices about their own bodies that aren't really choices at all. If that's you, I want you to know you have the right to say no. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to walk away from any situation that doesn't feel right. I learned that secrets destroy families. Eleanor thought she was protecting the Morrison legacy. Instead, she destroyed it. If she had told Marcus the truth when he was young, they could have worked through it together. He could have made peace with his infertility. He could have chosen adoption or donor conception openly with full knowledge and consent. But Eleanor chose secrecy, chose control, chose to play God with everyone's lives, and look where it got her. I learned that strong women aren't women who never break down. Strong women are women who break down and get back up, who cry and scream and feel all their feelings and then keep going anyway. I broke down so many times during this journey, sobbed in Keisha's salon, shook with rage in Tammy's apartment, fell apart in Marcus's arms more times than I can count. But I kept going, kept fighting, kept believing that truth and justice would prevail. And they did. Most importantly, I learned that I am enough. Eleanor spent 10 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough for her family, not rich enough, not polished enough, not the right background, the right pedigree, the right stock. She was wrong. I am a woman who survived betrayal and came out stronger, a mother who protected her daughter from a legacy of lies, a wife who rebuilt her marriage on a foundation of truth, a friend who leaned on her sister circle and let them lean on her. I am exactly enough, more than enough. And so are you. If you're listening to this story, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, I want you to know that you are enough. Whatever someone told you, whatever lies you've been fed about your worth, whatever boxes people tried to put you in, ignore them. You are enough. Your body belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your life belongs to you. Don't let anyone take that away. Not a controlling mother-in-law. Not a society that tells you your value depends on who you marry or what children you have. Not a world that's constantly measuring you against standards you didn't set. Stand in your truth. Fight for your rights. Build your own family with people who love you for exactly who you are. And if someone tries to take your power, take it back. I did, and I would do it again. The doorbell just rang. Keisha's here for dinner. I can hear Harmony squealing with excitement running to the door. Marcus is laughing about something in the kitchen. Mama called earlier to say she's bringing her famous peach cobbler for dessert. My people, my family, my life. It's not perfect. No life is. But it's mine. And that makes it beautiful. This is Denise Carter Morrison. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, if it made you angry or sad or hopeful, let me know. Comment below. Share with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because stories like this matter. They remind us we're not alone. They show us that justice is possible. They prove that even when someone tries to destroy you, you can rise from the ashes and build something beautiful. That's my wish for you. Whatever you're facing, whatever secrets are weighing you down, whatever battles you're fighting alone, rise, fight, build, and never ever let anyone tell you that you're not enough. You are. You always have been. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember your body, your choice, your life. Always.